Welcome back to the home studio and welcome to episode 54 of the Stevie Richards Show. Today we are going to begin a series, so take a drink. Future episodes are coming down the pipeline. We're discussing WWE Developmental, even WWF Developmental in the past, the present, and also giving suggestions for the future. And also in a future episode, once again, take a drink. My God, you're going to be drunk by the end of this intro. In a future episode, I will be giving suggestions if I were running a developmental territory about a specific curriculum on how to train a person that walks through the door from knowing nothing, from not taking a bump, not having a match, not cutting a promo. And it's really just developmental 101. So let's turn it over to my co-host and good friend, the man who single-handedly turned Chris Benoit babyface via a thumbnail and a title. James Romero, how are you?
Yeah. Was I wrong, though? Is Chris Benoit overrated? Not to say that he's not great, but is he the greatest of all time that some people say he is?
Well, I'm not good at like plugging or promoting ourselves, but I would tell people to watch that clip because I think we really do break it down in each element of that based on the Sunday Night Heat match that I had with Chris and his overall work. And especially when you compare him to somebody like Eddie Guerrero, and Scott Norton had said this, he said he had to think about it a little bit. I needed less than a nanosecond to say Eddie Guerrero each and every day of the week, twice on Sundays, brother.
Brother. You got me, brother. Call my wife and kids. We're going to do the intro quite soon, actually, because I actually want to talk about the Patreon in a second for reasons that is going to become apparent. But it's Stevie Richards' fitness channel on YouTube. Go over there for your fitness needs. I encourage you all to subscribe there. The Cameo as well, the Stevie Richards Cameo. That is nothing to affiliate with this show, by the way, so that's all Stevie. One of the most popular people on Cameo, and the reason is because he gives more effort, he gives you better answers, he gives you more of what you need, and your money's worth more than pretty much anybody else on that platform. So I encourage you all to go there and throw some business Stevie's way, and you will not regret it. But I wanted to talk about the Patreon. We plug this hard every single week, and there's a good reason for it. It's growing by dozens every week, it seems, at the moment, which is great. And it's because we do the watch-along. We'll talk about the watch-along in a minute, but we also do the pre-shows, and I think this is probably the most interesting pre-show because it was one giant complaint that we thought, no one would be interested in the main show. But, what do we talk about on the... We will talk about the match we watched, but what do we talk about on the pre-show?
Well, I don't think it was one total big, long complaint. I talked about Tempur-Pedic mattresses and how their warranty program sucks. That's less interesting than the other thing that we actually addressed and kind of speculated on the success or the failure of the upcoming 24/7 wrestling channel on satellite radio. We talked about, the way they're going about it could be a failure right out of the gate, because no dissenting voices, echo chamber. We go into greater detail about my thoughts and your thoughts on that during the pre-show.
Absolutely, and the watch-along this week was a modern match, in fact, for once. Sometimes we watch some of Stevie's stuff, sometimes we watch classic matches from over the years, and this was almost a bit of a heralded as almost a modern classic for AEW. It was AEW Collision this past Saturday, episode 100, and one of the matches that was heralded as particularly good and worth a watch was the Outrunners versus FTR. Stevie gives his thoughts as well at the end of it, what he would tweak, what he enjoyed about it. And, that goes 25 minutes as well. So if you join the Patreon, we assure you get your money's worth. This isn't something like where you get... Who does a bad Patreon? I don't know. Who signs up to a bad Patreon? But you get an awful lot with this Patreon. A lot of exclusive content. A show within a show. The pre-podcast, which can range from sometimes 15 minutes to an hour. And then you get at least one watch-along and everything else that goes with it.
Yeah, and any chance I get watch along segment wise, what went wrong, what went right here on the YouTube channel, any chance I get to get James to pop for FTR bald, I'm all in for that. Which, by the way, segue on that. Tell everybody about that.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's like FTR bald and then the Stinky Face podcast. They're the two things that I enjoy more than anything else. Right, Stevie and I have decided that we're probably going to be watching and reviewing All In. And Saturday night's main event. So that's a lot of wrestling we're going to be watching and studying and recapping, and may well end up being... Do you think it's going to be a double episode next week?
I
for
don't
it?
know.
Or
Poor Chris, who has to do the turnaround on some of these things. But yeah, I think we're going to see what we can do. It might be a two-parter. Who knows as far as what could happen at that pay-per-view, Saturday night's main event. We believe the watch along because we keep bumping tests back each and every week on Patreon. You're going to say that background of Stevie's is from a year ago, from what you're used to. But we believe early on, God willing, we're going to be watching and doing a watch along on the Goldberg-Gunther match from Saturday night's main event on Patreon.
absolutely. I'm more excited for it now because on Monday he looked better, he was moving better, and they didn't belabor the point. One punch, get out there. So we'll see how that works out in all the other matches Saturday night's main event. But the big pay-per-view of that weekend, we were also bemoaning the fact that there's like a pay-per-view every weekend, it seems, at the moment. So that's all getting exhausting. But we're going to be doing all in the main event of Saturday night's main event, or at least the Gunther Goldberg match, whether that's the main event or not. We're going to be doing SummerSlam in a few weeks as well. So no end of it. No end of wrestling content to provide.
I think we got to, we talked about sponsors and emailing sponsors on Patreon. We got to email some energy drink sponsors because I think we're going to need it.
Right, can you believe this, right? Stevie said, oh, we should do a live watch-along of All In. And I went, are you taking the rise? It starts at like 1 a.m. local time, and Stevie can't stay awake beyond 8 p.m. his local time as well.
You got to tell him what I said about WrestleMania 40.
Yeah, he did a live stream watch-along of WrestleMania 40, and he started nodding off through it.
Match 2 on night 1.
Goodness me. There you go. Were you doing that with Russo?
No, I did it on my own because we were there. I said, let's try for the Patreon. And I started to fall asleep. Although Vince Russo has a precedent on falling asleep during a live stream, and he ended up making the most amount of money ever in bits on Twitch. When he was asleep, he made a couple $100.
Yeah, and you told me that, and I was like, damn, maybe we should be on Twitch. Maybe we can actually make some money out of that damn thing. We don't do live streaming, but I'm thinking of doing some live streaming stuff later on this year, so you've opened my eyes to the fact that I could fall asleep. There's the Rodecaster video right there that you've told me not to have.
Well, I told you the pros and cons of it. I'm your beta tester on this to make sure that your upcoming projects take a drink, everybody. James, for every new channel he wants to start. And it's going to be very exciting to implement that in there. And this may be one of the few times that I fly internationally or fly at all. I might come out there to England to see what's going on with the studio.
What do you mean might? You are. You can't wait for it. You're circling the calendar for a date that doesn't exactly exist yet. You cannot wait to get involved in this project.
Okay, you expose James exposes Stevie Richards. That's the title of the thumbnail.
It should be. Right then, on this episode and future episodes, we don't know if this is going to be a 2-part or a 3-part of this, because originally it was barely going to be a 1-part, and then we realised how much there was, and we're going to be talking about WWE Developmental. In fact, we're going to be starting with WWF Developmental, because we're going to be talking about stuff from 2001 onwards. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about the Big Four from OVW. Stevie has wrestled 3 of the Big Four. It's John Cena that you haven't wrestled, in fact. Batista, you've wrestled numerous times. One thing, right, I was looking through the match listings with you and Batista in the same match, and it got me to realising just how many Battle Royals there were on Raw in 2003 and 2004. There was like one every 3 months for a world title shot.
Yeah, that's when they started to really water down and take away the special nature of a Royal Rumble and other things and really just kind of beat that to death. And in their excuse, maybe, not officially or verbally, but what I can assume is you have the WCW guys, WWE guys, developmental guys, you have all this roster oversaturation. So how do we get everybody on TV and get our money's worth out of that? That's what I can only assume, that if we get battle royals or multi-person matches, gauntlet matches, we can literally use more people on a show and get a return on our investment. But it did water down something special like the Royal Rumble, where I've already seen 8 or 10 battle royals this year.
Now, we're going to be talking, as I said, we're going to be talking about the developmental, if I can say it. And we're going to start at 2001. For people who don't know, Stevie has been in Heartland Wrestling Association. He had a short stint in OVW in 2004. He went to Florida Championship Wrestling when that was WWE's sort of like more in-house developmental program, and also did some guest coaching in NXT as well. So there are tons of things to talk about, as Stevie said at the beginning as well. That we're going to have like ideas of curriculums and how Stevie would do it, how WWE are not doing it right according to Stevie as well. Tons of stuff in part 2 and maybe even a part 3 coming up. But once again, part 1. For wrestling fans that lived through the era, the WWF in 2001 was a huge year for changes in the roster. Some would argue not the greatest changes in the roster, but there was such a huge influx of people coming in due to the invasion. But the right to censor had been shut down in April of that year. And then for the next few months, you either were not being used on TV or used sporadically on the B shows, or you were working indies like MCW and basically waiting for the WWF and Vince McMahon to give you something to do. After the Chronic experiment, be careful what you wish for, of course, lasted a grand total of a week, you were mostly kept off television working house shows, excluding a couple of Jack matches and, of course, a couple of Battle Royals. You start teaming with Tommy Dreamer on the house show circuit, and you face the Hardy Boys, Billy Gunn and Chuck Palumbo, and also the Big Show in handicap matches. But also there are some OVW standouts, and that includes Randy Orton, Rico Constantino, and Brock Lesnar. There's one other that we're going to save for a future segment on the show. Now, we've talked about Randy Orton on a previous episode. The video is up on the YouTube channel. John Cena is somebody you've never shared the ring with. So let's talk about Brock Lesnar. What I'm going to give you the most RF video shoot question in the world here. What was that like, wrestling Brock Lesnar? Was it nice?
Are you asking me if I have any memories? That's the official question.
Yeah, do you have any memories of Brock Lesnar?
Let's start with the memories of John Cena, because John Cena, we did have physicality during the ECW kind of invasion thing where Sabu had that really great match with Cena. But previous to that, I did a promo at ringside with PJ and Balls Mahoney, and then Cena came out and hit us with chair shots. So there was some interaction with Cena. The only other interaction I have with Cena, it's my favorite, is I was a huge fan of the Marine because I watched that trailer during the commercial breaks each and every week on Raw. So I was really familiar with the Marine trailer, and I was hyped for it because I watched that trailer, like I said, more than anybody. So Cena and I had a thing for a few months where when he wasn't filming the Marine and he came back somewhat, mostly full time, if I saw him in an airport, if I saw him at the gym, anywhere at all, I'd scream across, say, the security line, "Hey, John, they have a hostage." And he'd shout back, "It's my wife," because that was the line from the trailer. So as silly as it sounds, we had some sort of rapport with that. It sucks that I didn't even get to work Cena on a level of providing an obstacle to Sabu or something like that, because I did pitch that during that time. Let me work John and at least try to get some heat on him and put a roadblock up in the ECW thing that he's trying to fight, eventually getting to Rob at One Night Stand. So at least get a match with Cena, a little bit of a bucket list. Like you said, Batista, Brock, Orton, all these people from OVW I worked. I was aware of that, and Cena was definitely one I wanted to work. So Brock, man, I told you this before. The thing that stands out is that tag match in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we dominated that match, Dreamer and I, against Brock and Randy Orton. If you don't believe me, just trust me, bro. How's that? But I remember the memories, as you would put in an RF shoot interview, the memories I have of that is only one thing and one thing alone. The fact that my back was to one side of a WWE 20-foot by 20-foot ring, back against these ropes here, belly to belly with no jump, just snatched me, threw me, and my heels hit the other rope on the other side of the ring. It was like Rocky. The only thing that stopped me from being Rocky to go into the first 4 rows was the ring ropes. It was scary, dude. I felt like that's where time stood still, and I'm like, I'm never going to land. It's like that little, thing where they kind of like clip out somebody and they're just flying around the globe over and over again. That's what I felt like.
Have you seen? It's a fan-made thing, obviously, where Scott Hall takes the stunner at WrestleMania 18. He was doing that thing where he was jumping as high as possible.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then someone's edited it where he just keeps jumping and then he jumps over the moon.
I did see that. Wasn't there another one where? There's a ton of wrestling memes where someone gets hit with something, and they're just, like you said, they're shooting through the universe out into the Oort cloud and everything. So yeah, that was real for me though. I literally saw other planets outside the solar system when he bellied me.
What goes through your mind when you are wrestling somebody? Obviously, he had more pedigree than some other people we were going to name on this list. As like a super green, ultra muscle bound guy that is quite excitable. How do you even go about one, calming them down, or just try not to get hurt?
Well, I'll take a saying from Taz: survive if they let you. That's all it is. It's a game of survival. It's a game of almost, if I knew better and he didn't tell me, well, he didn't really tell me, but if he told me, just resist with all your might and you'll land in the center of the ring off the belly to belly, I would have done that. I would have not, because I didn't jump at all. I would have did it to Jerry's sandbag just to hit the middle of the ring. There's nothing you can do because the other people on the list that were developmental, like a Heidenreich and other people, that's when you get hurt. And then you get the Chris Masters in his debut match coming from a place of developmental as well, where they're telling him this is your only shot. And if you don't take his head off with the Polish hammer, you're never coming back. I mean, not word for word, but the hint was there. So that's the part where the developmental system needs to, number one, smarten these guys up to a point where you're not an amateur wrestler anymore. You're not, you're not deadlifting 1,000 pounds. You got to take care of this guy and land him flat. But that's hard, man, coming from a legitimate world of those types of competitive sports to wrestling, and you're asking me to just give 5% effort. It's a hard thing to master.
I've seen this with other people where everyone's just used to jumping to help, and then there are certain wrestlers like a Brock or maybe a Braun Strowman or whoever else it might be who's just very strong, where you specifically do not jump for them because they insist on throwing you, with all their might kind of thing. So is that something you would have to go to a Brock and say, do you want me to jump or do you want me to trust you and you will get me over?
Oh, after that match, absolutely.
Yeah.
I had all the questions I needed to write down and ask from that point on. We didn't really work after that loop, that short house show loop. Like I said, I think I was going back and forth from developmental. We did some house shows with Dreamer and then maybe would go back home because we were off TV during that time. So I'm thinking we're still kind of trying to prove ourselves in the developmental system. But at the same time, it's an instinctive thing. It's like saying people from pro wrestling going in MMA, it's really tough to go from something where you're trying not to hit somebody to going from that to trying to hit somebody as hard as you can to knock them out. And then going back and forth like a Lashley, a Batista, and other people trying to live in two different worlds at the same time. It's very, very hard. I would say Brock was the best one at doing that because he came back from MMA, being UFC champion, to now adjusting to work.
So how many times did you wrestle Brock? Because it was only on a house show loop for a few shots, if that, I guess. So I've only got one match recorded.
It may have been one, it may have been two. I don't think it was in the 1 to the 2, one or a couple, but not like a few, 3, 4, 5. I don't think that was a complete loop of anything. I think they were doing stuff with Brock and Randy to see how they work against different people on the way to doing that. And that match might have been the idea for The Office to say, even though it was an easy pick, Stevie will be Randy's first match. Because it could have been Tommy. Tommy was in that spot too, to work somebody that was new kind of in their first few weeks on TV.
Did Brock go for the shooting star press?
No, he didn't, but I think he hit the shooting star press. I believe in that dark match we spoke about before where he tugged with Shelton Benjamin in Minnesota, where they got, that was their college area right there. So I think he did the shooting star in that match. I know previous to WrestleMania 19, he had done that shooting star press. Otherwise, nobody would have had the idea in their head to tell him to do it, or in Shane's way, dare him to do it.
What was the finish of your match? Who got the pin on who, if you remember? I know
I got the pin on Brock. Come on, man. We're talking reality-based house shows here.
Oh, of course, yeah.
No, Dreamer, I think, got the pin off on, it wasn't on Brock. It was on Randy, I believe. And it was definitely the DDT on Dreamer, but it might have been out of nowhere super kick. Then me and Brock might have peeled out as you would in a tag match to give them the ring. But I'm not sure. I can't really. I'm assuming there's no way in hell I got the pin on anybody.
With that being said, do you remember anything else from the match then, or just how Brock worked? Was he okay? Did he impress you in any way? I mean, apart from his strength, of course.
Well, you just look at a guy like that and you're like, in that era of WWE, they started to have people use their real names here and there. There was Dolph Ziggler, obviously, coming later down the pipeline. But the Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar, it was like, okay, they seem like they're going to use their real names. Randy's a third-generation superstar. That's super easy. Brock is an amateur wrestler, but how are you going to... He's already larger than life, but how are you going to make him larger than life in a storyline sense, in a character sense? And the easy answer was, give it. And we didn't even know if he could talk, which he's proven he can talk. They gave him Paul Heyman. And I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. He's an agent, an advocate. He's an agent. He was his agent back then, like a legitimate agent manager type role. And all Brock had to do was just destroy people. But you still said from that point on, when he gets in the ring with somebody like The Rock, what's going to happen? Oh my God, he's going over clean on The Rock. Okay, he is the next big thing. There's no doubt. They were calling him that, but he proved it each and every night. And then that match was SummerSlam, I believe, against Rock. SummerSlam 2002. Mm-hmm. Same show with Hunter and Shawn, correct? With the street fight, I believe.
Yeah. Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio.
Long Island, New York, Nassau Coliseum, I believe. If CT didn't get me in this episode, it will eventually. But he was the next big thing. I mean, the early thing with Brock was on TV was literally, I remember the Hardys hitting him in the head as hard as they could with chairs, him no-selling, and then him with the Hardys and especially with Spike, 3 to 4 just like tuck power bombs. Remember that? And I was like, is that his finish? Just power bombing people to no end?
You've broken a memory for me. Wasn't Brock being punished with a loss to the Hardys at one point? Am I going completely crazy?
He did an angle with the Hardys. He laid one of them out, and then Jeff, I believe, came in and they started lighting them up with chairs. These were you talk about my chair shot on JBL, man. It's got nothing on the way they were hitting Brock with these chairs.
Something in my brain is telling me that Brock had done something and he was punished with a loss to one of the Hardys, like early on in his career. I mean, no one remembers it practically, but for some reason that stuck in the back of my mind. I wonder if anyone can confirm that in the comments.
Well, he had that run-in with Cornette and stuff, and they said or they acted a certain way towards Cornette's wife during that time. There was a couple things in OVW, I believe, that might have... Because
he's popped for steroids. He's popped for buying steroids and whatever, but that was like the year before. But this was when he was still on the main roster, and they got him to lose on TV. And for the life of me, I can't remember why.
Well, that's well past the Cornette thing, too, because that happened all sort of within the same time frame. For all I know, they could have been testing him to see his attitude. How do you handle a woman not completely behind you? I don't know. I do remember the Hardys were given some offense that nobody else was given at the time. Like you said, the chairs, other things. And I think they even laid them out, didn't they? Like the Swanton and stuff like that.
Yeah, they were the first person to...
get over on them a little bit.
Pretty much, yeah. To sort of wrap this up then, I guess, it's easy to say in hindsight what Brock Lesnar was going to be, but you were wrestling... As I say, we're going to be talking about Ron Waterman soon. You, Batista, you had quite a good few matches with... Brock as well, some other guys from OVW, a lot of up-and-comers in the 2002-2004 period. Is it just easy to say, well, I wrestled Brock and I knew he was going to be a massive star? Or did he not particularly stand out compared to a number of other guys coming up from OVW at the time?
Well, I answered the latter question first. Absolutely, because you compare him to somebody like Ron Waterman, and we'll do a watch-along about that and talk about that. Ron Waterman and other people, Ron had an MMA background as well. Brock had an MMA future that we didn't even quite know about at this point. But looking at Ron Waterman and then other big muscled up guys, and then comparing them to two people I could think of right off the bat, Brock and Batista. Brock and Batista, but Brock more so, had a suddenness and a crispness to his moves, his body language, the way he could move. He was extremely mobile for what he could do and his size. Ron Waterman was the stiff, one-dimensional, big, muscle-headed pro wrestler. That's the difference. Brock, even picking you up for the F5, there's a suddenness and that's why he couldn't jump, because you're already up on his shoulders before you could jump. But do you see what I mean? If you watch Brock, even something like this. Ron Waterman would pick you up. Brock would snatch you and have that stink on it. He wouldn't hurt you, but you knew you were being handled. Ron Waterman, you could see there was a little bit of a phoniness involved, cooperation, where Brock, you're like, ooh, he's the next big thing. He's the real thing. So working him, I could say, yeah, he had something to him, but at the same time, if the machine doesn't get behind you, anybody could be a Ron Waterman. Brock could have been watching a Marine trailer during commercial breaks. Mm-hmm. That's all up to them.
Next up, one of the OVW sort of stars of the early 2000s that doesn't get mentioned enough as far as someone who's actually just a proper talent, and especially because he was only really used for a couple of years, I think, and I can't remember how long his run was. I think he debuted in 2002. I don't remember him much past 2004, 2005. Rico Constantino. Now, he had various versions of, I guess, pretty much the same character, which would be, I've put Nilly, but Billy and Chuck, he'd be the super gay hairstylist for them. He'd make them gay, at least as a publicity stunt, which is something else that was brilliant with the Eric Bischoff old man marriage thing.
Do you want to hear how Vince described all three of them?
Yes,
especially Rico, because everybody was talking about, like, or maybe pushing back or asking questions, I think, in production meetings. They're not gay. They're eccentric. That's how he described Rico, as eccentric.
Well, glad the was it gay and lesbian alliance.
And if I was in a production meeting, I'd be literally and physically biting my lip to say, "Are you eccentric, Vince?"
He was eccentric.
Yes, but I'm just saying, if that's your definition, here we go.
He, the eccentric Adrian Streets, who also wasn't gay, in fact, would tutor Rico in some of the finer points of the character, I guess, before he made it to TV.
And he was a gear maker, too. I communicated with him from time to time. Yes, he was.
What's the place on the coast? Where did he live? In Florida?
I thought he lived in Pensacola, or up near the Panhandle, right?
Yeah, I think that's about right. He ended up moving back to Wales in the last few years before he passed away as well. Let's talk about Rico then. You wrestled him, I guess, a good few times over the years then. Rico was a talent. All right, I'm going to do RF video again. Your memories of Rico.
All good memories. All great memories, I should say. Rico, legit tough guy, by the way, just like Brock and Adrian Street. Legit tough guy, cop, all that stuff. The thing with Rico was, this is where the same era where the boogeyman needed to lie about his age, Rico came in around 37, 38 years old, right? He came in much later and older, and they were really against hiring anybody or featuring anybody in the 30 age bracket and up, in the mid-30s or up.
41.
41?
He was 41 when he made it to the main roster. Yeah, he's born in 1961.
So my assumption is that he was in developmental and 37, 38 years old, or approximately around that time. Mm-hmm. So we could talk about that too as a time frame and a framework of how long is too long in developmental and how short is too short. Well, take a drink, future segment, maybe in a future episode. He was great, man. And then the thing with Rico was, obviously with the eccentric gimmick post Billy and Chuck, he wasn't afraid to show a different side that would be almost in mystery woman territory, if you think about it at the time. He really, really, really wanted to stand out. And what we say in wrestling, show your ass, show your vulnerability. Don't be so stringent and be so out there to kind of show a different side of yourself. And he did a great job with that. And they didn't even touch on the Rico Constantino that was a legitimate martial artist, that was a police officer, that had a history of, really some tough situations. And I have nothing but good things to say about working Rico. He could hurt you. And that's what I mean. Being a shooter and being a legit tough guy, he was also one of the lightest guys to wrestle in the ring. And one of the fun guys where you can collaborate back and forth and also bust each other's chops a little bit and not take it too seriously.
With WWE at the time, and I've got a feeling you might say yes to this, was it gimmick first and then try and find a wrestler to fit said character?
Yeah, because normally what it would be, and we talked about with the FTR Outrunners match, they showed great chemistry. They showed, man, we can squeeze a whole storyline and angle and a bunch of matches because these guys are working well together. But no, now in this point, I think it was, at first, we need a hairstylist or we need a manager for Billy and Chuck. Rico probably volunteered and said, I can do that. I'll grow the sideburns. I think Rico really did give a lot of input. And that's the problem with wrestling too. They want the wrestlers to be the writers. And what good are the writers if they can't come to you and say, Rico is this, this, and this. Therefore, I have a character to wrap around Rico and turn it up to 11. Yeah, you're right. It's sometimes with characters that they have in their mind, they're trying to squeeze a round peg in a square hole and say, well, we're not doing nothing with this guy. Let's see if we can do this character. You don't even know who the guy really is and if it can translate into your character, his real life personality morphed into that, or are you trying to shoehorn it? Like, say, Paul Burchill. Let's make him a pirate. Also, let's give him a sister, Katie Lee Burchill, and let's make them incestuous. Oh, wait, that'll get heat. So now they're eccentric. I'm not kidding. I was like, how many eccentric people? We're all crazy, so we're all eccentric. So what's the definition of this?
There are levels.
That was where they said, Stevie, get out of the production meeting.
Yeah, and before you do, here is the dress and the wig, and go out there and be eccentric, pal.
Yes. And Vince is eating his steak, and we're all just watching him for 2 hours. Yeah, Vince used to bring food in, and then he would just eat, and he would just wait for the meeting to start.
What? Right? Okay,
yeah.
Okay, what? Right. Okay. What?
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing. When were you in production meetings?
Or remember I told you there was a time where they regretted saying if the talent wants to sit on some of these production meetings, and I sat in the back. Yeah, and then we were like, we're not welcome here. They wouldn't say anything. Me and Dreamer went into one of them. Yeah.
So 50 people would just sit there in silence watching Vince eat an entire steak?
Pretty much.
In silence?
Yeah.
Is he a slow eater?
I think as a rib he would be. I don't know. I didn't. But
That's amazing.
That gave Dreamer and I the idea for our COVID operation. No, our covert operation to hit the office because they were throwing food out afterwards.
Well, obviously you'd be like scraps of the fat that Vince left off the steak or whatever.
No, these were whole steaks, big things of Isopure, cases of Detour bars. Oh, no, we didn't. No, we weren't. It wasn't Lady and the Tramp in the alley or anything.
That was what I was thinking. Then you and Dreamer sort of like meeting in the middle with that, the bit of the fat.
Hey, you're eating steak. Why don't you kiss?
No. Right, next. Oh, no, we're sticking with this one then.
I'm sorry, I detoured us. You wanted that detour,
didn't you just? I should be careful what I ask for sometimes, I guess. Scared. Do you think advertisers got scared of the Rico character? Like how they did with Goldust and that kind of thing?
Oh, the whole Billy and Chuck thing. I'm convinced that whole thing at the wedding, quote, wedding, and then, which, by the way, the Eric Bischoff thing was done to perfection, wasn't it? That was awesome.
Hey, Eric was just doing that backstage all afternoon, talking to people who knew him, just doing the old man thing with the mask on. No one recognized him at all.
One of the if you haven't seen it, everybody, go watch it. This is one of the gems in wrestling. And the fact that Bischoff fooled everybody, as James just said, because I saw him backstage. I didn't know it was Eric Bischoff. Nobody did. That was amazing. But I'm convinced that when they were promoting this wedding, this union between Billy and Chuck, that there was some advertiser stuff going on. And this is during, not exactly at the time, but is this right around the time of the Muhammad Hassan thing where they also needed to do that, or was that way before?
No. Muhammad Hassan was 2005. So the Billy and Chuck thing was 2002.
Okay. You see, WWE tries to come back around and squeeze it in again and see if they can push the envelope. You got to give them credit. But I'm convinced, wasn't there a USA Today article about this as well when they were promoting it?
It did. Yeah, as I say, there was a gay and lesbian group who sent them a gravy boat. Actually sent them a gravy boat as a wedding gift. And then they saw what it ended up being and were really upset about it.
Oh, so there was a positive backlash in a way.
No. Yeah, leading up to it.
Leading up to it, they were looking forward to it, thinking they were going to be represented. And then maybe WWE got cold feet. There might have been on the other end, because when I was watching it, I was like, they took a 180 instantly, where Billy and Chuck went against Rico and said, no, it literally saying this was all just for clicks, views, ratings. This is all fake. We did this for attention. And that's probably what got those groups most mad. But I feel like just my antennas go up that says, was there a major advertiser that said, if this goes off like you're maybe planning, we're out?
Mm-hmm. With that being said, before we get off Rico, just one more thing. What was the spot that he did in full Rico, regalia and in full Rico character that would get the biggest reaction from the crowd?
Well, based on when I worked him on Heat, when I was doing my unexplained heel turn and lost Victoria and all that stuff in 1 week, it was that spot where he did the waist locks easy and you work your way up. That's a gold dust spot. Rub the chest and the torso. But he literally did something and then just did the kiss. And that's where the Heat spot started from there. But that got the biggest reaction of all. That's why we did a Heat spot right off that where I worked his leg. Everything he did was really, how should I say, fearless with what he did with the gimmick. And he had Jackie Gator with him too. So there was that that made him eccentric, because obviously he has a female girlfriend, valet. Now it's like, what is he in that regard?
You're not going to thank me. Patreon, I have it written down on the list already. It's got to be that Jackie Gator match. It's just that Jackie Gator match.
Oh, the one with Trish?
Yeah.
The one where they did tried to do the Stratisfaction and all that stuff?
Yeah, it didn't go well. So that could be a future Patreon if there is demand for it, by the way, as a watch-along.
Poor Test. He keeps getting bumped back.
Next up, right, Ron Waterman. Ron H2O Waterman. There is a list of the worst names in MMA, and that got on there. And that's on the par with, I can't remember who had it, Uncle Creepy. That was a nickname, MMA nickname. There's been some horrendous ones. H2O Waterman is horrendous of a nickname. But you probably know the name if you're watching match listings or keeping on tabs of match listings around 2001, 2002. He was in OVW for a while. He was on dark matches constantly, as much as Brock was or Randy Orton was. Someone was really, really high in the WWF office on Ron Waterman. And I guess if you're looking at him as a post, the airport test, as you say, you can see why. Huge dude, roided to the gills, and what Vince McMahon wants, at least in the physique of a wrestler. But whereas the Randy Ortons and Batistas and Brock Lesnar's and John Cena's and Shelton Benjamins and Ricos and even the Eugenes, and Eugene didn't have the body, Ron Waterman floundered. Why?
I have no earthly idea. Because usually, like you said, all those dark matches right up there, and I'll include this name, he had as many dark matches, it seemed like, for those months as Kurt Angle before he debuted on Heat. So when they give you that many dark matches, and I'm assuming house shows as well, they're getting you ready for TV. And usually if you put him in the ring against me in a singles, or there's a tag match where myself and somebody like Rico are involved, you're prepping him to be comfortable with guys that are going to put you over on TV. Like, we would have that dark match, and usually that, like the Randy Orton one that I didn't know I did, that dark match with Randy would also lead to the debut match on TV. So I don't know. And for all that's being said, Ron had a great attitude as far as I know. He wasn't a problem. Maybe that's why he got so many opportunities in dark matches. But at the same time, he just felt like when I worked him, in a tag match and singles, it felt like he couldn't even turn his body side to side type thing. He was very stiff on one plane, and that was going to be it. Now saying that, if Ron Waterman could I'd say Ron Waterman could do the moves of the Ultimate Warrior, and he could run to the ring. If he had a presentation that made him different than just H2O Ron Waterman, I can't even say it. So if he could do something to become a character, even Heidenreich became such an eccentric. That's the word for today. You're here at the Playhouse. Do the Pee Wee Herb. But if you can think of something, Heidenreich was just as stiff and one-dimensional and working on one plane, couldn't turn his body, but he just had some it factor that made him different. Now, that it factor that made him different also made him really fizzle out very quickly and stay in a hospital because the food was too good. So you take the good with the bad. Ron might have been too flatlined with charisma and being a character and not being over the top that it just would never translate. And to say, okay, we got a big muscled up guy, Ron Waterman, Brock Lesnar is the same thing, but man, Brock is a whole different animal. Why have two of the same if one's going to expose the other too?
Yeah, with Ron, he looked a bit like a slightly shrunk down Scott Steiner. They did look very, very similar. There's quite a lot of dart matches that you can access online. There's one on YouTube with name's gone out of my head. Anyway, it's some dude who I can't remember the name of, who wasn't like a main roster guy. Must have just been someone else from OVW. His entire gear walking down was a woolly hat. And he looked scared, didn't look to have any charisma. And then I saw a promo he did in OVW. He said the words, but, no conviction, no anger, no whatever. He looked like he was reading off a cue card, basically. He just didn't seem to... And also when he's wrestling, he was doing power moves, but as you said beforehand, there was no snap to them. There's no intensity about him. He was just doing the moves. And I guess in 2001, there's just a heck of a lot of competition. And there was a ton of muscle Marys around the early 2000s who were doing, performing better than Ron, I guess. But the thing is with Ron, he had real pedigree. I think he had 16, 6, and 2 in MMA, including UFC, Pride, Pancrase, etc. He was well-travelled mixed martial artist. He was a real athlete. I don't know why it just didn't translate for him.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about pro wrestling, though. How many football players and legitimate athletes from all walks of life could not do pro wrestling, could not get pro wrestling? That's kind of like you're talking about the developmental things, which we're talking about it on this series of episodes. Just because they have a NIL program doesn't mean it's going to pan out. What's the percentage of those athletes that come in that are going to be successful? What's the threshold? Hey, 5%, 10%, you need 20% of these people to work out or more?
Gable Steveson. What better example?
There you go. And it's not an automatic that you're going to get. If a guy has a gold medal, it's not always going to be an automatic Kurt Angle or a Chad Gable. You'll get more Gable Stevensons than Kurt Angles and Chad Gables.
Just because it'll annoy some people, it's Steveson. I know it's a weirdly, they've just taken an N out of the surname, but it's Gable Steveson.
And by the way, they're not even doing what they should be doing with Chad Gable, so they don't know how to handle somebody with a legitimate pedigree. So let's say it's a two-way street. Ron Waterman could be a huge star. The machine could get behind him. He could have... Now that I use this blueprint for everything, why in the world did Ron Waterman at least get the chance to follow the Diesel blueprint and be put with a guy that knows how to work, that can figure him out, give him one move house show type of interference spots, do things on TV that make him a threat, and then have him wrestle while continuing to do dark matches? That Diesel blueprint is the blueprint for every big dude that might need to be coached along until they get it.
Yeah, but they still screw it up. Even with like Camille in AEW last year when she was with Mercedes Moné, they screwed that up. Anyway, that's by the by. We want to actually talk. I've got another name to mention in a second as well. But your match with Ron, how did you find him?
I found him very raw talent. Like you said, a legitimate pedigree. Attitude was really, really good. To where I looked at it and I said, they're going to at least do something with him, because if you test him, you test his ego, you put him in a spot he might think is beneath him, I think he can handle it, because I think Ron knew what the business was compared to the other things he did. He's a well-traveled MMA fighter, a legit fighter, and I think he saw this as an opportunity to have some fun, maybe play a character, do things. Maybe he had to grow up watching wrestling. At that year, I think there was some guys, Brock wasn't, but he's a special case. There's other people, they might not be all in saying, this is all I ever wanted to do, but they might look and say, I know I have a future in here because I grew up watching this character or that guy, or I saw Hogan and Andre, and I'm like, man, if I ever get a chance to do that, I'd like to try it out. That puts you ahead of a lot of people that like silly type shit. Now, there is a benefit to treating the business like an absolute business like Brock, where you're not a mark for it, but you have to weigh that. I think Ron had the right mix, and I honestly couldn't tell you why or how they came to the conclusion, seemingly out of nowhere, after months and months and months of giving him the opportunity to come along, that they said, we're done. The only thing I could suspect, here's Brock progressing, here's Ron Waterman just staying kind of lateral movement and not getting better. That's the only thing I can think.
Yeah,
or here's another thing. This may have been as simple as this. The guy or the person that really, really loved Ron Waterman decided not to back that horse anymore and not to pitch Ron Waterman. And that's as easy as that.
I'm just trying to have a look at how many dark matches he had or house shows he had. At least 60 in the span of less than a year. So WWF, at least at one point, very high on him. I wanted to give you one more name that always seemed to be, like on the Ross report on WWF.com. He would always mention this name or occasionally mention this name. Watch out for this guy, Glenn Kulker. His name seemed to be bandied around for years around the Attitude Era time, and he never even made it to the main roster. So they were high on him. They probably sent him to Power Pro Wrestling, whatever Memphis Wrestling was in 98 or 99, but it's just another guy where it never clicked for, I guess.
Yeah, I can't picture. I know the name, and I know I've probably interacted with this guy. I don't think I've ever wrestled him, but the Glenn Kulka name is very, very familiar to me, and I couldn't tell you. And here's the thing. Let's go and try to go into a theory of precedent. Al Snow. How much did JR put over Al Snow? Mm-hmm. And what ended up happening to Al Snow? So when JR is pitching and mentioning on the Ross report, watch out for this guy, he's going to be a star. Do you think Vince instantly was like, well, I'm not going to do anything with this guy?
Could well have been. I don't know if he worked like, the CFL or something like that, but he was an athlete as well. Yeah, he did have a few dark matches in WWF, mostly beating Edge. But before Edge was Edge, if nothing else. Right.
Wow, so they must have been at one point a little bit higher on him than Sexton Hardcastle. There's an Easter egg for
He
you.
wrestled Sexton Hardcastle on a Shotgun Saturday night in a dark match. He was Sexton Hardcastle the first time they wrestled.
I remember that.
Yeah. So, the Jackal beat Glenn Cook. There you go. Right, okay. So, we have to now go to prospects, and this one didn't work out as well. And the reason I wanted to bring it up, because I could have sworn in my mind it was Ron Waterman. It turns out it was a guy who looked so much like Ron Waterman, I just forgot the name. Flesh Gordon. Now, I'm sure people...
He was Dolph Ziggler before Dolph Ziggler.
He was Sexton Hardcastle. It's like Sexton Hardcastle, Flesh Gordon, and Dolph Ziggler. Val Venus. There you go. There's a faction for you.
That could have been... This name here, my God, Flesh Gordon. I mean, there's some times where you just don't want to get that close to the name of Flash Gordon.
No, but you know what, right? Flash Gordon was a series of quite famous porn parodies of Flash Gordon. Because I used to see him in the video store, Flash Gordon.
That could have been the beginning of the end right there before this terrible match. And I've never seen this, by the way. And the Easter egg is, you said versus some geezer. It's actually Geezer.
Kazarni.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sinn Bodhi, or Sinn at the time, I believe he was known as. And yeah, it's Flash Gordon versus Sinn, the future Kazarni, in the worst art match of all time. It's 3-minute video. I want to time how long it takes for you to put your head in your hands.
All right, but we can watch it. There's not the scrubbing, pausing, although it sounds like I don't want to pause this match and rewind. But in this, we're not going to get copyright on this. We're good with this, so we can just play it, correct?
Yeah, WWE has washed their hands of Flash Gordon.
This match is so bad that they're not even going to get mad at us for using the match. I love it. I think before this match started, that Raven pulled him aside and goes, I'll wear a ring jacket. And this is a Flash Gordon. At least it fits the gimmick, right? That is a Flash Gordon ring jacket.
I'm going to bum you out now. It's on because it's a SmackDown taping, which Raven was on Raw, unless he phoned him saying, "Eh."
Oh, that won't stop Raven. No. All right, let's play this. Now, the Ben Hameen, friend of the show, he's a big fan when wrestlers lose to ring attire. Does Flash Gordon right off the bat lose to the ring jacket or the GoPro chest vest, as I call it? You know, the strap you put on to put the GoPro on the chest? That's what this looks like. All right, let's go. Let's go!
Is he going to be 2-0?
No, he won. Very lean Kazarni here. Now, does Flash Gordon reside from the Double X Ranch or the Triple X Ranch?
It should be the Triple X Ranch. I believe this is the Instagram accounts who somehow got this match. But more of these are just appearing, these dark matches. It's great.
They must have those catering VHS tapes that are lost.
No, I think a lot of them are like satellite feeds that were somehow people tapped into.
Oh, like Nitro did, where they had everybody exposing the business during the commercial breaks. Remember that?
No.
DirecTV. They would have the NWO like doing the hotel black and white promos. And then on the satellite, they were running it during commercials. And they were bringing like Luger and Sting into the room. And
oh, were they?
The people they were fighting, yeah. They were partying and drinking and cursing, yeah.
Nice.
Great stuff.
All right, well, I've got to find that out. But
this isn't great stuff, according to you.
Oh, horrendous. Now, there's no sound on this because Stevie's playing it, so our apologies to the audio listeners.
Oh, what a sell.
You're going to have to give us a running commentary, Stevie.
Whipping to the ropes, kind of a leapfrog. There's the leapfrog there. And there's a hip toss where he almost bumped with him. It's not too bad. Come on. All right, do you see what I mean? Like the Ron Waterman thing? Like when he runs the ropes, it's just, he can't turn his body. You know what I mean? Just that kind of over-exaggeration turn to run the ropes. What I'm seeing here is not bad. Like, okay. I mean, he's at least safe.
Oh, it gets worse.
Not too bad.
That was a suplex into a neck breaker for the audio.
I did that with Jericho on Stevie Night Heat once.
Oh, did you?
Oh, those are terrible punches. They started out good. Right here, watch. Just missing them. So, now here's a question. Easter egg on this, because there's no audio. Usually the commentators that are doing like Heat or Jacked or Metal or whatever secondary show, they are commentating during this, or you got Kevin Dunn. You can hear the feed of people talking in the truck and everything. And usually it's it's comedy gold because they're usually really crapping on stuff like this. Is that present in this video?
I didn't listen to it before I sent it you. I mean, I've listened to it, but that was all I was listening to was the audience just going, ugh, or laughing.
Wow.
Or very mild booing.
But you see what I mean? Even the selling, he just goes like this. There's no like movement outside of a turn. There we go. Even Kazarni's a little bit off here. Oh, there's a miscommunication right there.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you put the 3-punch, oh my goodness. Oh, he was trying to bounce back like Eddie Guerrero used to do that too. A couple other people, they would bounce back off the rope. That's interesting. Just a lawn dart toss. Oh, don't talk. Everybody talks, as Botchmania says. Oh, man.
Is that happy feet?
That's happy feet mixed in with I don't know. There's such an issue with distance, ring awareness, and then the running of the rings. And I don't know how many matches Flash Gordon had in the WWE ring, but this is not exclusive to go, oh, the ring's too big, or I don't know what's going on right now.
That's the kind of foot movement that should be accompanied by
right? There we go. Whip. All right, now here's the thing. You're that big and strong, but your whip, watch this. I've always hated this. See what I mean? Literally, You're letting him run 3/4 away across the ring. Throw in. You know what I mean? It's not just this, like the Mexican pass. Good turnbuckle. He had already moved before he started running. I don't know, man. I don't know if this will be the worst dark match ever. See what I mean? He already moved. All right, it's getting to the word. Oh my God. What
was that?
All right, 2 minutes, 23 seconds.
Rewind it. Tell for the audio listeners what just happened there.
I would call this move a delayed response. So, punch. I don't know what to do. Punch. I'm just going to drop to my knees. Like on a punch, this is like when Roddy Strong got Stevie kicked off the ropes and bumped forward. But worse. Kind of cool, but kind of what? False finish. The fans need more. It's not over yet.
Do you like how Flash Gordon just went on the offense there? So he gets a near fall on him and then he just stands up and
this look right here is literally, he did not call anything. So I'm assuming there's still a miscommunication coming right now. I was right. He didn't call anything. He just ran off the ropes. That's how you get your face broken like I did with Rob. He said duck. I didn't hear him, but I wanted, that could have went a lot worse. Is this the pin? No, 2 false finishes. I would say this about, I almost said Ron Waterman. Flash Gordon, I got to say that slowly. Flash Gordon does not have a range of emotions. It does not have a range of facial expressions. He looks, when Flash Gordon is mad, when he's sad, when he's frustrated, when he's excited, when he's lost, when he's confused, it's this look right here. That look. I don't know what to say. I don't know. This actually might be the worst performing clip for the worst dark match in history because I don't even know. I don't even know what the finish could be right here. I'm definitely interested. I have to watch it.
I guess that's it. That's the end of the video.
Wow.
He didn't even get his hands clasped together for the full Nelson. He just sort of just like underhooked him and picked him up and then span him.
Okay. Here's Ron Waterman preparing for the match.
Flesh Gordon.
Did I say Ron Gordon?
Yes. No, you said Ron Waterman.
I'm sorry, Ryan. You're a great guy. He really is a good dude. That one.
Yeah, like halfway through this video,
Same.
you're like, it isn't that bad, this match. I mean, it's a bit clunky, and then it just collapses.
Ron Waterman, whether he's starting the match, whether he's taking
It's Flesh
punishment,
Gordon, not Ron Waterman.
You got me, brother. You got me, brother. Call my wife and kids. Call my cats.
Have I just ruined a bit, or did you actually just call him Ron Waterman again by accident?
No, dude, I'm literally calling him Ron Waterman. You seared, you've burned that into my memory now that you thought it was Ron Waterman for some reason. I just keep saying, maybe because Ron Waterman rolls off the tongue better than Flesh Gordon, which should be the opposite,
Dude,
but it's not.
This needs to be harped on more. Pull the video back up. That last few sequences needs to be broken down. What went wrong, Stevie style? I think they were brushed over too much. I mean, start halfway in and let's just watch it again, and just pull apart what's gone wrong.
Do you want to go into the soapbox speech here? This finish?
No, even that. I'd go further back. I'd go halfway through when it really starts.
Some would
to fall
say
apart.
the entire match was a finish.
Finished his career.
All right,
I don't think it did much for Sinn Bodhi either.
Reverse. Suplex.
But look at this. He barely gets him over.
Yeah.
Is that just rushed?
That's rushed. That's
yeah.
an issue where you are strong, but still it looks like it's not a good suplex. I'd even say this. This is something I hate. Why when you whip somebody in, slow-mo and I'll pause. He whips him in. The upper back, you know what I mean? This has more up here, the really push. You're not doing it. But down here is just like, hey, brother. You know what I mean? Just a good old boy. You're helping him to the corner instead of trying to thrust him into the corner. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because this doesn't. All right. Bounces off the ropes. He moved before he ran. He moved, and then Ron Waterman starts to run.
Flesh Gordon.
I'm sorry. Flesh Gordon.
This is the new Stinky Face podcast.
Oh. I don't know how he's still on his
Sinn is
feet.
not doing himself any favours by doing the weakest looking punches with his hand on the other side and hitting his hand.
Well, I was going to be sarcastic and go, I don't know how Flesh Gordon, I almost said it again, but was still on his feet after these shoot punches. That, for all we know, the one that dropped him on his knees was real. You love that part. That's your favorite.
That's outrageous. Well, if they call him Flesh Gordon, he looks like he's presenting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think Kazarni told him drop to your knees. Like after the punch. And he literally just dropped to his knees. Watch.
Good.
Yeah. That'll do it.
Would it be funny after all this time that maybe that spot wasn't planned at all? Except for the fact that it clearly was.
Oh my God. Here's an Easter egg. Kazarni is literally backing himself into the ropes to let Flesh Gordon, I have to be very, very pronounced with that, Flesh Gordon to whip him. Watch this in slow motion. I'm backing myself up. I'm putting my arm out. Now whip me. But don't call anything. He literally, unless he called in, this is one of those things where they're not rushing. They're not moving fast. They're cluttered in their mind maybe that we got to get to they might have been told to go home too, but they're not moving at a faster pace.
You think they were told to go home and get out as quickly as you can from this arena?
Well, you get out of the ring, but they're not moving quickly. They're just being cluttered. There's a difference, right? They're still moving extra slow, but extra clumsily. There we go. Now, JR would have a saying about this that's saying that was tougher than shoe leather.
The bowling shoe ugly.
So what would you say, since we're sticking with, what are your memories of this match?
The one we just saw.
Yeah.
Well, my memory was that Ron Waterman was in it. That's why I spent 40 minutes looking for worst dark match ever, Ron Waterman. I couldn't find it. I was like, I know I've seen it. And it wasn't Ron
basically,
Waterman.
You had the impression before watching the match, it was Ron Waterman. I had the impression while watching the match, even though you kept correcting me, that this was Ron Waterman. Now everybody in the comments is going to think this is Ron Waterman. And Ron Waterman did nothing wrong.
Man, just so people know, we were 20 minutes late starting this because I spent so long looking for the Ron Waterman dark match that didn't exist. And here's what's even more annoying, right? Finally realised it's not Ron Waterman, it's Flash Gordon. So I searched for the Flash Gordon dark match that goes completely wrong and find out that Jim Cornette did this thing 3 weeks ago. He's already done a review of it, so now it's going to feel like we're copying him. But then I thought, well, no, it's already in the format, so we're keeping it. But
yeah,
it's totally worth watching.
Cornette's audio, but he has a great way of describing it. A lot more entertaining than we're just looking on with confusion. And
there's a Ron Waterman who's got Flash Gordon.
There's our every time I say Ron Waterman, take a drink. Hey,
take a drink of water.
There you go.
There you go.
You may have
touch
to.
your flesh.
Between the intro, future episode, future segment, and the Ron Waterman gaff, you're going to be drunk about an hour and 8 minutes into this thing.
Yeah. Okay, from one of the worst wrestlers in history, I guess, to someone who really surprised, I think, a lot of people. Actually, in 2002, he was one of the OVW Big Four, if you want to include Big Five with Shelton Benjamin as well. Dave Batista. He would have the same treatment, as Brock Lesnar and John Cena and everything. He'd be on the house shows. He'd be basically a pet project like so many of the other WWF OVW guys that would come up in 2002. You would have the pleasure, well, I don't know if it was a pleasure yet, but you would have the distinction of wrestling Batista before he debuted on Raw. Now, he'd already debuted on SmackDown as Deacon Batista, but you wrestled him in Texarkana. Have I said that right?
Yes.
Yeah, Arkansas and in Reading, Pennsylvania, before he made his WWE Raw debut, where he defeated Just Incredible and joined Evolution. Now, before your experiences with him, what did you think of the debuting Deacon Batista character, where he was essentially the box carrier for the contributions for Reverend Devon? What do you think of that character? Which is weird as a way to debut him compared to what he was in OVW, which is complete 180.
Yeah, it was definitely, I guess, a watered down, not as good version of the Diesel blueprint that I talked about. Bringing Batista up, having a veteran like Devon Dudley be able to really showcase him in a way that makes the most amount of impact. However, it didn't really translate. I'm glad they did. I don't know who or when or where turned around and said, this isn't working. It might have been Devon. And then they said, okay, we're going to repackage him into this. It could also be Hunter that eyed up him, Randy Orton, other people for the Evolution gimmick and the stable and said, that's a guy right there. There could have been a personal relationship with Batista and Triple H. There's some factor, because usually they don't drop that so quickly and then bring them right back in something really, really good. So something must have been that thing that really accelerated the going away of, Deacon Batista and come back just as Batista.
Yeah, there's another thing as well, is not many people get a second chance in the WWF, WWE around that time. And the fact that he got a second chance, well, this is terrible, but you are, what I'm going to say, basically. But here's something else I wanted to ask you. Someone that size, Batista's size, Brock Lesnar's size, whoever it might be, you're either going to be at the top of the tree or you are going to be the opening match. There's seemingly like no in between, really, I guess, for someone of that size.
Yeah, when you have a monster like that, you are definitely going to either shine or you're going to live way underneath your supposed potential. I think a Heidenreich, I think other people on the class of the Ron Waterman, and you never make it out of the dark matches. There's a lot of obstacles before you make it to the main roster on TV. Once you do, you're right. They usually stick with that, especially if it was a Vince idea or somebody in favor. They will sacrifice the talent's future to shoehorn that gimmick and make it work. So they did a complete 180 and not sending him away, and then he comes back a year later. He literally came back as Batista way less than 6 months later, correct?
Yeah,
it was quick.
Yeah, so September of 2002 was his last match. The 30th of September 2002 was his last match as Deacon Batista. I think he was just Batista at that point, but he was still on SmackDown, pretty much doing the same thing. And then he debuted on Raw in November. So I think the last time he was recorded, that's a SmackDown. He was teaming with Devon.
So essentially 2 months turnaround to become a completely new character with a top group. That's crazy.
Yeah, maybe 3, but no more than 3.
Well, he had the vignettes in November. There were still 3 to 4 vignettes of Batista yelling in the locker room, sitting on the bench. They were doing vignettes for him alone. And then the evolution ones came after that, walking off the helicopter onto the tarmac and stuff like that, the music video, essentially.
Yeah, we'll talk about your matches with Batista in a second, but what did you make of Batista's attitude? Because once again, we're talking about guys from OVW that could have, with the wrong creative, especially in Batista's case, could have killed his career dead, really, before they explored even, 1/10 of his potential. Was there something about Dave's attitude that you thought maybe kept his head above water as far as, getting buried under creative? Was he just easy to deal with, or, the office liked him for one reason or another?
I think it's both. I don't know about the office part, but I'm assuming the office liked him and Dave thought he was really good to deal with. He was easy to deal with me before, during, and after these matches, especially when we got to know each other. And Batista was one of those guys, just like a Rico. He wasn't coming in developmental into 18 years old, 21 years old. He was older and more mature with that, and he lived a lot of life and a lot of ups and downs. So I think he saw this opportunity as just that, the opportunity of a lifetime to make multi-generational money, and did not want to waste away that opportunity.
So you're one of the people who is charged with putting him over, making him look good on the house shows beforehand. Just incredible. Had some matches with him, quite a lot of matches with him. Red Dog, who would end up being
Rodney Mack.
Tommy Dreamer would wrestle him, Hurricane. Batista was even beating Kane on house shows. This is after he debuted. But he would be, by the end of 2002, he'd be defeating Kane on house shows. So obviously, he's going from, Deacon Batista's whatever he was meant to be, his second out in the ring, to straight into the semi-main event, or the upper card or upper mid card, however you want to say it as well. It's a heck of a turnaround very quickly.
Well, I think we'll talk about the house show matches initially, but I think the real quote tryout for Dave, for Batista, was that Six Flags show where Leviathan wrestled Kane. And that's what I felt like they saw him being, somebody that could draw money. Because you're with an obvious character that draws money. And I believe that happened before the house shows and the evolution stuff. Actually, probably before Deacon Batista.
Speaking of which, we'll talk about OVW in a minute, but what did you think of the Leviathan character? Did you think that would have been money more than what Batista ended up being, which is basically himself?
No, I thought it would have been very limiting. Because the era in the 80s, Batista as Leviathan probably would have drew and worked Hogan, and maybe even possibly went over on Hogan a little bit, but probably not. He would have been another monster to be fed. But that character's in the Hogan, like Demon Slayer, Dragon Slayer, Monster Slayer era. In this, the Ruthless Aggression era, I think that's the official era we're looking at, right? Mm-hmm. In this era, I think and I believe the Evolution character, the Batista in the suits and everything, but also being a real human being, but still being a freak of nature at the same time was the perfect mix. We were going a little bit more into reality. Like I said, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, Dave Batista, they're starting to attach real names to these characters and give more of a reality-based presentation.
Yeah, they basically dropped the U from his name, his surname, Batista. Because I guess you pronounce it Bautista? Because I think it's like a Filipino
I always
name
pronounce it
like
Batista, so maybe it's the U is silent.
So, once again, to channel our video, your memories of working with Batista. Was it nice?
It was great. It was great. Texarkana stood out of the whole loop for one reason and one reason only, and it involves Kane as well on a ride after the show. Working Dave was really easy, but I knew my job, and I actually, in a way, had to stop him from being so generous on the house shows and not having a 50-50 match because he wanted to sell, he wanted to do things, but I had told him, you're a monster and you're going to be presented at that. And if they see that you're too vulnerable and selling for somebody like me, they may not push you as much. And that's been a proven kind of, blueprint for how they work.
Yeah, who else would fall in that trap? Because there's a lot of big guys who are too giving.
I'm not quite sure. I can't think of it right now. I'm sure that'll come up. But there's a lot. I mean, Glenn could be somebody. Kane could be somebody that could have been coached to be not as generous because his nature is to work with people. I would say Glenn would be somebody early on that they really coached to not be that way according to the character. Not that you're a better person than this person, but the character needs to be more dominant. So that's what I had to kind of preach today. And it didn't take long. Obviously, he's going to argue with me. Oh, I don't have to bump as much. You're going to do more of the work. But I remember the Texarkana house show, which was our first one. Dave was telling me to be aggressive and he's not going to die or just sell or be on his back. And I remember specifically, I don't know what happened, but I was shoulder blocking him in the corner and trying to work him and everything. He pushed me off. He went to the middle of the ropes and I dove and speared him like Goldberg would in the corner, expecting him not to do this. I speared him and we both went through the ropes to the floor. Oh, no. No, it was like the Big E spear where we both landed. It was safe, but the fans were like, oh my God, like I was destroying Batista. I was like, I guess we're starting to heat. We got into the car afterwards. It was silent. Glenn staring straight ahead in the passenger seat, which he usually did because he said I was a crazy driver. But he was staring and it was like 10 minutes. And I was like, dude, are you okay? And he's like, do you know that spear you did to Batista where you went through the ropes? I was like, yeah, I'm the one who did it. Of course I remember. Don't you ever do that to me. Ever. And just stared straight in the head on the rope. So it was like a joke for a little bit where Batista the next day walked up to me holding his ribs. And so that's the fun part of the business. But it was an absolute pleasure working with him. And I don't take any responsibility for anything except what I was charged to do to make him more comfortable. The only thing I was disappointed with was that I didn't have the first match on TV to put him over.
Would the office ask your opinion? Because, you were saying quite a few times on shows prior that, all it would take for Vince McMahon to sour on a talent is asking someone like Shawn Michaels or Triple H, and they go, But they would still ask, obviously, their opinion. Would the office ask your opinion on the guys like Batista and Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton and stuff? Because you wrestled them all.
Yeah, they absolutely would. And that was my unofficial thing to go to the developmentals, since we're talking about developmental in the multi-part episode, future ones, take a drink. Definitely, I would come back and give unofficial reports. Now, these aren't stooge reports, and maybe that's why I didn't do it officially, nor did I do it very long where they would ask me, because I would give honest answers. And the honest answers about, somebody like Batista would be, well, obviously you guys see him as a main event talent because you're going to put him in Evolution. I already knew that from that point. And I'm going to say he deserves it and he's going to be great. He's a big guy that can work. If you give him the mic, he's very charismatic when I have conversations with him. And then there's a part of me that's just like, when I walk away, did I put him over too much and now they're going to bury this guy? Like the J.R. Al Snow thing. So I had to temper that with, of course, at the same time, he's green. He'll need to be in there. I think with Hunter, with whoever Hunter's going to pick for the group, they're going to coach him and he's going to be really good. So I had to really watch what I said, because if I'm like really, really advocating for him, I don't want them to play God and just say no for the fact that I'm kind of pitching him. That's the way I looked at it. But
One more thing.
No written reports.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I wasn't on that level of being an actual scout where I would do that. But Johnny would call me like after I worked John Morrison before Eminem. And I said, dude, these guys are going to make a great team. They already have the fur coats. They already have Molina, their presentation. They've already kind of pitching this gimmick. And then they put it on TV. I guess to make them aware that they're already doing the gimmick here. Why not bring them up to TV?
Batista would say he absolutely hated his time in OVW. For people who don't know, I'm sure most people do know who are watching this, but OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, was Danny Davis, Jim Cornette, head trainer was Rick Rogers, and they were WWF, later WWE's feeder system, or essentially developmental territory, where they were their own autonomous, supposedly autonomous feeder system that WWF, WWE would then call up guys. And then when Johnny Ace took over, Jim Cornette blamed Johnny Ace for completely ruining it. But that being said, Batista, unlike most people, said that OVW was not a happy time for him. And it's because of the Leviathan character. He said, for what it was a big dominant monster, which would basically only do squash matches. And he said that put back his development as a talent. That's probably why when he was on the house shows with you, he wanted to do more with you, because he wanted to get selling more dialed in and, wanted to be more of an all-rounder, I guess. But what do you think of Batista's, I guess, complaint saying that OVW basically pushed him too hard straight from the off, because then he, was missing some bits from his game early on?
It's so funny. This lends to the character of Dave Batista, at least back then. What I knew from Dave back then, that he just wanted to do what was best for the match, best for the storyline, best for business. That's definitely the opposite of what you usually hear from a developmental talent that wants to get pushed to the moon. Dave was self-aware enough, because like I said, he was an older guy. He wasn't just an 18-year-old kid. He was self-aware that he knew he needed to do this when there wasn't millions of eyes watching him and seeing how green he is. So yeah, he felt like he was behind the eight ball. That's an interesting quote. I give him all the credit in the world that he wanted less and he wanted to earn more. So when he did get called up to the main roster, he will never get demoted back to developmental. But OVW, this is the thing. OVW had TV. OVW needed to sell their big Six Flag shows. OVW needed to sell sponsorships. OVW ran their promotion like a feeder system, but also their own company. So they had to push them to draw money. So what this was, and this right here is the love-hate relationship between developmental territories and WWE. And with the ID program, we're going to see people kind of fall out of line thinking they're competing with WWE. And I'm going to give some quotes when we get to it. Bill DeMott, Jody Hamilton, Deep South Wrestling were actively thinking they were competing against WWE.
Future episode.
Not future episode. That's a direct quote from both of them.
Right, you need to remind me of that so I can put it in the format for the next time we do this.
It's going to be on the Rob Waterman episode.
But it's actually Flash Gordon for 2 hours.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. Right, HWA, Heartland Wrestling Association. Now, you are sent down to HWA. This is obviously OVW's the most famous feeder system of the 2000s. Deep South Wrestling would emerge later on down the line. I think that was Jody Hamilton.
Deep South was Jody Hamilton and Bill DeMott, McDonough,
Yeah.
Georgia, south of Atlanta, Georgia, yeah.
Right, HWA was Les Thatcher, wasn't it?
Yes, Cincinnati, Ohio, and Les said it before. Legend, great mind for the business, also a really, really decent dude.
So, you are sent down to HWA, I think pretty much according to previous episodes, I don't want to say old, but previous episodes, Jim Ross said you need to get in shape. We don't even know if we're going to keep you on the WWF roster, but you'll have a better chance if, go away and learn a new hold and lose some weight as well, get back into ring shape, all that kind of thing, which you did. You end up with another 8 or 6.5 year career in WWE from it. That being said, was HWA for you a total demotion, or did you realize it was just like a halfway house until you were called back up? How was your time in How did you find your memories of HWA? I'm sorry, I have to ask it like Rob Feinstein every time now.
Yeah,
I'll pretend you said 18. Carry on.
Jeez. God, how do you expect me to answer the question after that one? So, I'm going to try my best. Let's start with the very beginning, where you talked about overarching. What was my attitude towards going to developmental based on the meeting with JR? First and foremost, I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I'll say it in the future. I appreciated the candor, the honesty, and the bluntness of JR to give me the actual lay of the land and to give me something that might discourage me and give up, but actually motivated me because he put it in context. Even if we release you, you'll be in shape and you can go somewhere else. He gave me all the options. It was all up to me. And I knew that. So the HWA was not a demotion, although we're going to get to the pay cut in a few minutes. It was not a demotion. It was an opportunity. It was the most exciting, the most, how should I say, anticipated opportunity of my whole career at the time. Because now it was up to me. Succeed or fail, eliminate the excuses. It's not everybody's fault anymore. You gained that weight yourself, you dumb F. You're up to 262 pounds. Nobody made you do it. You lost the biggest opportunity of your entire career, the most over character, the biggest heel run. Now what can you do on your own to get something back, to make some semblance of a wrestling career that could be positively memorable and not just be a stat of somebody that fell short, and blamed everybody else for their shortcomings. So I was very excited. But day one of HWA started out very interesting, and I've told this before. We land in Cincinnati, and then I'm carpooling with Dreamer and Bill DeMott. We're driving. We come up on a bus on the side of the road that obviously was in an accident, and it's smoking. We pull over behind the bus, and we proceed to rescue the people in the bus because the doors will not open. Bill tears the doors open. We run in and get the people off the bus and rescue the people off the bus, all three of us. And I was like, well, this is off to a crazy start. So we head there, we settle in, we get to the weekly motel where everybody's staying, all the developmental people that are there, all the people like PJ, Chuck Palumbo. There's AJ Styles is there, not as WWE, but as people trying out for developmental. And this weekly motel is the base for the camaraderie, for people getting together, for people going to the gym, going out to eat. Everybody did everything as a team. And it was definitely the best experience. Just to give a spoiler. We put our bags down. Then all of a sudden, phone calls start coming in to each person's room. And then Crash Holly was there along with us. He got the call, and I was right there where he got his guarantee cut in half, if not 3/4. Next, my call came in. I got my guarantee, which was supposed to be, we talked about the negotiation. I was in year 2. I was supposed to go from 750 would have been awesome. 75 to 125. Johnny called me, and this is where everybody loves my Johnny Ace impression. Hey, Stevie, how was your flight? I was like, it was good, Johnny. What's going on? Hey, I just called you. I'm really proud of you for going there, but we got to cut your pay. Got to cut you back down to 75. But don't worry, you'll make more. And they hung it up. And Crash is in the back going, cut him to 50, Johnny. Cut him to 50. He sucks. He's a fat F. Cut him down. He doesn't even deserve to make 25. So that was the sub. But you know what? When that happened, it was like everything to make me have the negative attitude, the I'll show you, you'll see positive attitude, spiteful attitude came out. There was nothing you can do at this point, James, to discourage me. It was almost like ignorance is bliss. I'm going to push ahead. I don't care. It rolled off me like nothing. I was like, all right, I got more incentive in there. And then we were off to the races.
How long were you there for? It was only a couple of months, wasn't it?
It felt like longer, but not in the negative sense. Each and every day was progress. Each and every day was an experience. I'd have to say it was closer to 3 months, but it felt like we were there because we were so, how should I say, invested. From the time you woke up to the time we went to bed, every day was full, and we were immersed in the craft, in the art, in the psychology, in the physicality, in the camaraderie of wrestling. It was everything. Dude, it was really, Stevie Knight, he was something, but this here was my favorite time of my entire career.
Really?
From a professional and definitely a personal level. The professional fulfillment and progress and the personal, this is what made me think, wow, this is the first time I feel like I belong in a wrestling locker room. The first time I can laugh at myself. The first time I don't have to take it seriously, but I am taking my craft seriously. And the first time I ever, and really, I think the only time ever in my career that the boys were really encouraging each other. Because in ECW, I didn't have the experience to realize it. I had the awareness, the experience to enjoy the camaraderie and the goofiness of it all.
When did we've got more questions about Heartland, obviously, but when did you know you were getting called back up again by the WWF, as it still was at that time? Was it weeks ahead, or you just called up one day and you're back on the road?
No, I think we were still dipping our toe in the water of going back to the main roster and being developmental, like you said, like the house shows. So when we did the tag match against Big Show on the live heat, which I think was my first match back in WWF at the time, tagging with PJ against Big Show on live heat. That wasn't the first TV?
No, you wrestled the Hardy Boys, you and Justin on the subsequent heat. You then wrestled Mr. Perfect, and then you wrestled the Big Show.
But this was all within a 1 to 2 month span, so it was week to week. This was all in the same era.
That all happened in April.
Well, there you go. For all I know, I don't know. It just feels like I was still doing developmental work during that point. It wasn't like, oh, I'm back on the main roster and here I go. If anything, even if I was back on the main roster, they didn't let me know, and I wasn't taking it for granted. I would still continue to work my ass off to prove myself.
Now, we've mentioned Les Thatcher, but there's also a guy that I want to bring up. His name is Cody Hawk. Was he the co-owner, or was he one of the owners or trainers?
He was like a co-owner or promoter. I remember Cody Hawk. He was an indie worker as well, but I think he worked shows, but I think he co-promoted and maybe ran the school with Les. I don't know. I just remember that name came up a lot with Les Thatcher's name. He could have been the guy that was the trainer that got in the ring more with the students.
So it wasn't just you who was sent to Heartland Wrestling Association. Other names you might recognize, either from the WWF roster or WCW, or ECW, just incredible. Raven was sent down to HWA for a while. X-Pac, Shannon Moore, Sean Stasiak, Tommy Dreamer, Hugh Morris, Johnny the Bull. A lot more got sent to OVW as well for brief periods. OVW would, I guess, more or as much so be used for guys who what to lose weight or coming back from an injury and tune up, or thought they were too green to be on the main roster and then bump back down to be brought back up, like your Mark Henrys and once again Big Show to lose weight and people like that. Was anyone, with all the names that I've read out there, it just shows, for nothing else, how bloated almost the WWF roster was. That's a great roster in itself, quite frankly. Just those names, or a lot of those names as well. Was any of those names bitter? Oh, Shark Boy. He was in WCW, so you can throw Shark Boy in there as well. Were any of those names like a bit bitter about being, put down to HWA, or did everyone pretty much, chip in and just enjoy it for what it was?
It might not have been in totally surface level, like authentic enthusiasm from everybody. But remember, there's no more WCW. TNA is kind of a, sparkle in the eye right now. It's not really doing anything if they're not there at all, because AJ would go from the first pay-per-view to do that. So this was in between that. So I think everybody, whether outwardly and authentically being enthusiastic, like myself and a lot of others, they were going to suppress that and put their best foot forward because there was nowhere else to go.
Trying to think who else you'd wrestle. I'm looking at it. Jamie Noble, you'd wrestle. Cody Hawk, Shark Boy, Tony B. Maven, who would be sent down to HWA after winning Tough Enough. Gotti, who I don't know. Ray Steele, who I don't know. And of course, Rico Constantino, who you would defeat for the HWA Heavyweight title. And you told me beforehand there's a bit of a story with this.
Oh, there's absolutely a story. This is actually, it's funny and it's weird in so many ways. It's just wrestling. So the HWA title, which I thought was the OVW title, I'm sorry, in the pre-show we talked about it. HWA title, the champion at the time was Easy Money. But every time Easy Money was told or given any kind of clue that he was going to drop the belt, he would have an injury, he would be ill. And in this case, we were going to OVW to do TV tapings, and he was supposed to defend and lose the HWA title. I believe it was against Rico. It wasn't against me. But he fell in the shower and suffered a concussion. And not just any concussion, according to him. He was unconscious in the shower for over 3 hours. And I said, that's not a concussion, that's a coma. So he could not make it to defend the title. So obviously he had done this before, and the guys in developmental, even less, had told me this is what this guy does. It became like a rib in a way.
This isn't the character. This isn't the character. This is real life.
This is him as a person not wanting to drop the title.
Damn. Okay.
This did not air on TV. It should. Now it's airing on a YouTube channel. So congratulations to everybody. So I did the Bob Holly or the Edge, and they were like, what are we going to do? I said, well, I'll wrestle Rico and you just put the belt on me. And surprisingly, they said, that sounds like a good idea. I was like, oh my God, it works. I can't wait to try this in WWE, which later on I would be sat home for 4 months for trying that. So we go there, Rico and I have the match. And I think someone had said Easy Money was so upset that he couldn't keep the belt. And I said, well, you constantly get injured every time you have to defend it. So why? So he was very upset about that. So I don't know the exact details on the other end of it. I just know, and I think he was riding with me, as a matter of fact, because I was waiting outside and I was given the word, he fell in the shower, he has a concussion, he's been out for 3 hours, he can't make the show. So me as brother, worker was saying, okay, I'm going to step in and win this belt. And it worked. Couldn't believe it.
We need the clip of Raven in WCW where he leans over his shoulder and go, what a mark.
Oh, the one where he's like very subdued, but then he breaks the fourth wall to say, this is all a gimmick.
Yeah, we do need that.
Him and Canyon, and then in the one vignette, actually Sandman playing chess with glasses on. Yes. A lot of Easter eggs in that.
Okay, is Easy Money, from what you just told me, is he the biggest mark in wrestling history?
That's probably the biggest Mark story I've heard.
That's up there.
Easy Money and Chris Hamrick and ECW are the epitome. If you look up in a dictionary of get your stuff in, those are the two guys.
Excellent to know.
Super nice guys. I'll save it with that. I got along with them fine, but listen, I'm a goof too in a lot of ways, but you got to give him credit for the effort. And he was successful in many phantom scheduled title defenses to keep that title.
He's sort of like the less successful version of Shawn Michaels. Do you remember his first run where he had like 10 titles and he only lost 2 of them? Like the rest of them were like stripped.
Smiles, Syracuse brawls, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I figure he's like the modern day, not modern day, it was 25 years ago. Shawn Michaels or 23 years ago. Right, okay then. So to finish off this bit of the developmental chat, there's nothing else, is there? No, there isn't. Then we've got a bit of news after that as well. I thought it'd be good to bring up some of the OVW HWA prospects of the WWE era of the first half of the decade of 2000. So somewhere between 2000 to 2005, 2006, something like that. So a bunch of names that either never made it to WWE but were in OVW HWA or whatever the other developmental territories may have been, or were briefly on the WWE roster and WWE completely squandered them in one way or another. So we've got quite a lot of names to go through, and we're going to give you, for once I actually thought about this, the rankings. What constitutes what here? So, S, the best ones, WWE Championship material. A, main event potential. B, uppercard potential. C, undercard potential. And D, should have never been in a ring in the first place.
I got it. Oh, Chris, he's got a brand new Mac Studio. We're going to put it to the touch with these graphics and After Effects and keyframing and everything.
Yeah, he's not going to thank me for this. I did manage to photograph most of the names and then sent him to him. While you do the intro, I just went, I'd sent it him, so hopefully he's got a leg up on it. Right, okay, the first name we're going to put up here, and it's someone who actually had 2 very brief runs in WWE, but I think sort of qualifies for what I just said before. Mordecai, Kevin Thorne, Kevin Furtick.
Well, I wrestled Kevin Thorne a bunch of times in the new ECW, some of my favorite, most physical matches. So if you get a chance, check that out. Kevin, he has success after wrestling. We talk once in a while. He outside the wrestling business, you get along a lot better. Inside the business, it can be like butting heads sometimes, and Kevin and I did that, but only to try to have the best match we could. The Mordecai character, very interesting in a way, because obviously big Undertaker vibe when you look at the vignettes, right? And he was really good friends, as far as I could see, with Undertaker. So I naturally saw an Undertaker angle happening with these vignettes. So it had everything. It had a very deep, dark character, the opposite of Taker, the white stuff, the white robe, the white outfit, the blonde hair, the blonde goatee and mustache. I saw a lot of potential to be a main eventer based on those facts, whether the vignettes, the presentation, and also being friends with Undertaker. I thought it would be a natural. So I thought the Mordecai character had main event potential if it was paired with Undertaker and treated the right way. But without that, I still felt like it had uppercard potential. So which would you, I think the factors and everything they thrown in the Undertaker element, I think it was main event potential based politically on that.
Now, we're not also talking about the gimmick itself, we're talking about the performer as well.
The performer is uppercard. The performer, that's strictly the performer, and what Kevin could do was uppercard, but the gimmick put him in the next tier of instant comparison to Undertaker, which could also, I think in the end, destroyed the character very quickly. Just my speculation.
Yeah.
So the biggest strength was the thing that made it fizzle out quick.
We're going to be very strict here on this. I'm going to say B for that, because it's more the person rather than. I mean, obviously WWE squandered a lot of these people as they do, and obviously made stars
uppercard
as well.
is still great. You can make a ton of money in an uppercard talent.
There's absolutely no slight. Chris Cage, not Christian Cage, Chris Cage.
Now I know Chris Cage. I saw him in HWA. He was an OVW talent as well, correct?
Yep.
And he teamed up with Johnny Jeter too on the early days of OVW, I believe. And Johnny Jeter was Johnny Jeter before the Spirit Squad. Mm-hmm. So Chris Cage had, what he reminded me a little bit of Julio De Niro way with the curly hair, black hair, lean. He also reminded me of Swinger a little bit. He had a lot of different things I could assume that look. He had a lot of potential, but I never saw anything because he could bump and sell and he could make others look good. He would be a Stevie Richards character, so I think it would be C. But that gets you a long career, a utility player. But I never saw him cut a promo that stood out or had a match or told the story, but his mechanics were good to get other people over.
The Basham brothers. So was it Doug Basham and Damager, I believe, in OVW?
Doug and Danny Basham, yeah.
Yeah, one of them was called Damager in OVW.
Yes,
yeah,
correct.
Those two.
Well, they were with JBL as the cabinet. That's a main event gimmick. They were tag champs, which they wrestled. Did they wrestle? They wrestled Guerrero, Eddie and Chavo. Then they wrestled Benoit and Rhino too. They had a few.
They had to.
angles.
They had like 20 people on the roster at one point. Yeah.
So I would say they were basically. See, this is where they made it to the main event as the security for JBL.
Yeah, but they're not main event in pay-per-views.
No, they're not. But being tag champs makes them upper card. See, that's weird. You have an upper card, undercard, but not a mid card. Which most of the tag
mid-upper then. We'll say mid-upper.
I put them at a B.
Okay. Right, Russ McCullough, which I don't know if you ever interacted with.
Oh, I
Russ
remember.
McCullough.
Booker T ribbed him incessantly. Booker T would not let up at Baggage Claim or anywhere else. Big Russ McCullough. Oh my God, here he comes, everybody. Booker's dark match commentary was the way Booker would commentate when Russ McCullough walked into a room. Russ McCullough was at Baggage Claim. Oh, look at this big guy. I'm telling you what, don't make him much bigger than this. I'm telling you there. Oh my God, Big Russ. There you are, Big Russ. And he would just say it. And Russ McCullough would sell for it in not a good way. And Booker was messing with him, but he was all in good fun. But the reason, in a way, he was messing with him is when Russ McCullough stepped into a ring, you might as well, just like I had kissed the GM on an apron, spray painted a D on his ring jacket because he should never have been in a ring. So you were hoping for one of these, weren't you?
That's why I put his name. Yeah, I think Jim Cornette maybe have described him as the worst giant in wrestling history, which covers a lot of ground, let me tell you.
If I shared a ring with him during a workout one time, and somebody said, oh my God, with the way Stevie moves and works and looks, he looks bigger than Russ McCullough.
What? Did he just have...
No, because he just had not. He was... God bless him. He just had nothing. He didn't look interested. He didn't look into it. You know what he looked like? He looked like a Big John Studd's kid with a beard.
Mm.
And that's it.
Rodney Mack. Now, obviously, he made it to the WWE main roster. He briefly had the White Boy Challenge, and then he was just a guy on the roster for most of it. But as far as a talent goes, was he underserved by the creative? Could he have been more?
Yeah, I think definitely, especially with Teddy Long in a White Boy Challenge, which I lost on heat to him in a White Boy Challenge. So, upper card. You know why? Because Rodney could talk. If you put Rodney with Jazz, Rodney with Teddy Long, or all three of them together, that's a look right there. That's a stable. And he could work a rough style that was different. Rodney was weird because he wasn't a small guy, but he wasn't a giant, but he was just a big dude. It was weird. And he proved himself to still have that upper card potential in the NWA. If you watch his work in NWA, that's after coming off of maybe part-time work for how many years? He still looked great.
D. David Flair.
Yeah, the first initial of his first name is, the first letter. He should have never been in the ring. He could probably tell you that himself.
Well, the thing is with Dutch, he said he had him in Puerto Rico. And Ric Flair, the story is that Ric Flair called up, I don't know if it was Carlos or Victor Quinones, I think it was Victor Quinones, and said, look, take David for a bit to train him up, and then I'll make an appearance for you, as well as, a thank you. Which obviously Rick never did, and that wouldn't be the only time he would do that.
No,
he did it for Dory Funk, would you believe? Anyway, Dutch said not only was he about the worst wrestler in the history of the world, he also had a horrible attitude.
Really?
Yeah, he said he had like, I'm better than everyone, I'm a Flair, that kind of thing. He had the entitled attitude at the time. So Dutch says.
Well, I would have to believe Dutch. I mean, he's pretty fair with that stuff. He still wanted to take David on, and in certain ways, obviously Dutch and Flair now have more kind of this off and on, but I don't know about back then. But at the same time, even if they did, Dutch would still do what Paul Heyman would do. I'm still going to book him and make money with him and squeeze whatever I can out of this kid.
Well, do you know what he squeaked? Right, so this is the last thing Dutch booked before he left for TNA. He booked David Flair in a strap match where the fans got to strap the loser. And of course David lost.
I see where that was going.
So he booked that and then left. So then he got strapped to crap, and then so basically he got his revenge. Right, okay, then next
How's
one
this
on
for a match? Russ McCullough versus David Flair.
I'd pay for that. Do you know that there was like it wasn't Great Khali, but it was one of the other giants, like Giant Silver or someone versus... No, it was Giant Gonzalez versus Nails.
Whoa.
It exists in Japan, 94 or something like that.
Watch along.
Please, yeah. Someone write in the comments because I'll forget. Right, this next fella, he was often on WWE's roster. He was even a tag champ, but I'm still including his name because he was originally Garrison Cade, and then I think he became Lance Cade, or one way or the other, I think.
No, it was the other way around. He was Lance Cade and then became Garrison.
I'm sorry, then he was Garrison Cade. I'm sorry. Wasn't he one of Shawn Michaels'
yes, TWA, the TWA training school, I believe.
Yeah, people were really, really hot on him. I don't know if this was a WWE thing. I don't know if this was a talent thing. I don't know if it was a personal issues thing that sort of hampered his career, I guess. Because I know he'd obviously pass away, I think maybe 2009 or something like that.
Yeah, it sucks because I wrestled him a bunch of times, and I might have had house show matches with him as well. Him and Trevor Murdoch as a tag team were awesome. That's when he had probably his biggest run to date. But he had all the potential in the world. I'm going to put him definitely at, man, it's hard to say because you easily want to say main event potential, but possibly championship potential as well, depending upon Lance Cade. I'll give you an example. Lance Cade, as most people outside of the presentation of WWE in real life, have so much more charisma, so much more of an edge to him that they allow to put on TV. And one of my favorite things to do with Lance would be, for some reason, he would have a certain look on his face, and I would know just what not to say to him to set him off. So, like, if, I don't know, like, say it's David Flair. Let's just keep picking on David Flair. It wouldn't be. But I'd be like, Manny, can you believe they're going to give David Flair the Intercontinental title? And he would be like, Stevie, just not right now. I don't need to hear this right now. He would just stop off and I would ruin his entire day.
So, well, that sounds like a strong A for Lance Cade then. Is he really underrated? Because, I mean, he was just a guy on the roster. He was in a tag team for a bit when, the tag team division was just nothing. It was like him and the McAllisters. Him and
yeah,
Trevor
but you know
Murdoch
what happened to him and Trevor? Him and Trevor? Guess who they got fed to? Just like the Spirit Squad and everybody else, and it was the beginning of the end. DX.
Oh, it was a Triple H.
DX.
Yeah.
I believe that's true. Didn't they work DX?
If you say so, man. I haven't looked it up.
The blueprint is there. But yeah, he's a strong A, like a really strong A, and so much potential. And for people that don't appreciate or know, Lance really did have it all.
So, speaking of people who had been fed to DX, including a match I actually watched, I think it was DX versus all 5 members of the Spirit Squad or something. I know they killed them all. So we're going to exclude Nick Nemeth because obviously he'd have a long career, very successful career in WWE for the best part of 20 years, and he's still wrestling TNA now. Johnny Jeter.
He had potential, but I don't think it would have translated in WWE, so I would see him as a C.
Mike Mondo, who didn't he go back to be a trainer in OVW for a while?
He did. And Mike Mondo definitely he reminded me so much of Crash Holly. So much of Crash Holly, and I saw a one-to-one analogy with what they could do. I would still say in a WWE sense, even unless you package him in a Spirit Squad and hide the fact that he's not that tall, he's a big dude, he can work, I still see him as a C. He can bump, he can sell, he has character, and he can get people over. By the way, no slight on him, Jeter, or anybody else. That was my spot. You have a long career like that. Hey, by the way, here's a little thing. In case you didn't realize it, SummerSlam, another SummerSlam, when DX came out with the army, with the guns, with the pyro, with the thing separated, they came out on a tank. It was such a toss-up. DX or Spirit Squad, who's going over? I don't know. They had the Marine trailer during the break.
only it was the Condemned trailer. I actually really like that film. I
That was
really
really
enjoyed
good.
it.
And
Yeah.
that bad guy was Brick or Bricks in Arrow in the TV show as one of the bad guys.
Which one are you talking about? Vinnie Jones, Nathan
Jones. Vinnie
Vinnie
Jones.
Jones is great. I've got. I was gonna break into a snatch quote, then I won't bother. Kenny Doan. Now he was really pegged by the Office. It seemed like to be like the next big thing at like the age of 20 or something like that. And then would I be right to say that backstage players and politics paid to his career in WWE in pretty darn quick order?
Yeah, and I can't even believe he's an agent right now with certain political figures that are already figured in and back there as main event guys. Really interesting. Here's an Easter egg. Ken Dome was Ken Phoenix when Goldust took my match on Stevie Night Heat and I interfered. That was Ken Dome. So, hell, I mean, great talent. I would say Ken would be more of an upper card. He would definitely be somebody who would shine because he actually had a part where he would shine during the Heat a lot more with the Spirit Squad, like drop off the top rope, stuff like that.
And the last one, I put AKA the other one, Nick Mitchell, who was Mitch, I believe, in Spirit Squad.
There was a lot of there was stuff going on with Mitch backstage that kind of ended his career. I remember vaguely some of it, and then he went into like MMA, I believe, after this.
I had no idea. He's basically the guy I just didn't remember.
But he's a guy that actually was kind of, in a way, looked like he reminded me of Chet from Weird Science. Remember the Chet, the Boulder Brother bully? That was him. So if he could have been a high school bully type guy or a Stifler from American Pie.
He had one MMA fight where he lost to future UFC legend Derek Lewis.
Oh, wow.
Who gives the funniest post-fight promos.
His testicles were sweaty in these shorts.
Yeah. My balls was hot. Brilliant. Love him. Right, okay, for Nick Mitchell, what are we saying?
Oh, Nick Mitchell, D.
Right, next one, Mark Jindrak. WCW Powerplant guy, wasn't he? And then he just seemed to be seemed to be in OVW wherever for ages.
Yeah, also I wrestled him in Lucha Libre USA as Marco Corleone.
Yes.
I did. We have to do some Lucha Libre watch-alongs if they're in existence. Mark Jindrak, well, look at this. He had traveled with Randy Orton and gotten each other in a lot of trouble being young kids and everything. He was figured into Evolution in the original form.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying S for Jindrak. He had everything, dude. He really did. He still does, actually. Isn't that funny?
I know, but what happened with Mark then?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I wrestled him on house shows in New York. And I said, brother, you got to put me over. It's too close to your hometown. I tried to do the Jedi mind trick on him.
6'6" he's billed at as well.
Dude, if you looked at Mark Jindrak and Randy Orton, you would actually say just the eye test in the beginning, Jindrak's going to be a bigger star than Orton.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it then, just in case I was wrong. But in my mind, I'm right in my mind, he ended up being a pretty big star for CMLL in the 2010s. He was there for a while.
Soap operas. He did the Conan route of being like a crossover celebrity in Mexico. Because he was on a lot of game shows, talk shows, and soap operas, I believe. He still is a big name in Mexico right now.
Good for him.
He's a good dude, too. He's a really good guy.
Mark Magnus.
Well, once he became Muhammad Hassan, he was an ass. But then after the Undertaker carrying him out after choking him after the terrorist attack, probably a D.
But he was another dude who was big and great body on him. And, he was... I don't know how many promos. I can't remember at the time how many promos he was cutting because he had the manager as well. But, yeah, I thought he'd be up there for a while. And then, bad timing. It was 20... In fact, we've had a load of articles recently because it's the 20th anniversary of the London bombings. So that's pretty fresh in everyone's memory at the moment over here. So... yeah, that happened, and then he got beaten very quickly and then removed from television forever.
Well, here's another Easter egg. Great American Bash, Taker power bombs her and give him the last ride through the stage to the crash pad. Very next match. And we were told for an hour straight to sell the fact because we were coming out on the big wheels against the Mexicals as the BWO. But we had to do this. Make sure you do this at least 5 to 6 times. You see my face. I got to, couldn't be less excited about looking.
So, okay, forget that. I don't know why I even wrote Mark Magnus, but Muhammad Hassan. If he was given the opportunity, really. It's just far as his pure talent.
Yes.
Yeah?
You pair it with that gimmick. You got to, Sergeant Slaughter, Iron Sheet, you got to give him, if you're going to go that way, he's got to be completely dominant to get the most amount of heat.
Matt Morgan. Now, would I be fair in saying we were talking about big, huge guys who were just too giving to their opponents? I think Matt Morgan might be one of those guys who he always seemed to work more like a mid-sized guy, despite the fact he's like a legitimate, 6'9" or something?
Almost 7, closer to 7, yeah. For Matt, here's the thing with Matt. The stuttering gimmick killed him right out of the gate. That was the worst. Matt should have been a big killer. They did him much better in TNA as the Blueprint. But it was still kind of, they remembered that from WWE at the time. He's teetering between the A and the S because of sheer size and ability, but I would put him in a consistent A. Because if anything, Matt's going to be the big monster that Hogan's going to slay, that the main event, that the champion, he's the guy who's going to be able to work with the main eventers and the champions and draw money.
The next one, the Dicks. Tank, Toland, and Chad Wicks. They very briefly made it to the main roster, and then they were called the Dicks. Because
of their lack of height, but because of their look and their personalities, and the gimmick, obviously, you got to put them in the same category as a Jeter and Cage and all the others to put other teams over, so C.
And speaking of guys who look more like, I'm sure the nice fellas, penises, because they both had the bald heads, Gemini, who were hanging about with Nova, I believe, at the time.
And temporarily, they were managed by Simon Dean to go. With Nova, I would give them a C. Without Nova, they're a D. They never progressed. They never got better. They were really nice guys, as a matter of fact. I remember talking to them. They had asked for advice, but it just never translated outside. They seemed like the two big muscle-bound guys that the indie promotion would push as killers and they would have squash matches. And that might be what happened. See about Batista? Mm-hmm. That's kind of what they did in OVW, if I can remember correctly.
So a couple of others who were on the main roster for a while, but obviously for different reasons, weren't on for very long. Elijah Burke.
Well, Elijah obviously had an uppercard run, but I believe Elijah could have a main event run, either with Turkey, Sylvester Turkey as the manager, or as himself. And in ECW, he was a main eventer. That didn't mean much for anything, but he was a main eventer. But I would say steadily in TNA as the Pope, D'Angelo De Niro, he did a great job there. So consistent uppercard potential.
So we're saying B for Elijah?
B, yeah.
Right, okay, this
I'll
other
tell
dude...
you Elijah Burke's story
please.
Since we're connecting it. And I got my revenge on him, I think, somewhere down the line. In the new ECW, we had the 4-way thing. Remember the promo where they made me say, Tommy goes, hey, come on, Stevie. I go, oh, come on me? You going to come on me, Tommy? Don't come on me. Yes, somebody's going to find that clip, I'm sure. Elijah, when we were talking the match over, it was a 4-way dance, 3-way, like a gauntlet week to week, going from 4 guys, 3, and then down to the last 2 for a championship match. So we were doing that, and we were talking, and by the way, Elijah and Kevin Thorne did not get along. Talking that part over was interesting. So Tommy's like, they're going to kill each other, wacko, and we're going to watch. So I'm standing there, and I remember the bleachers were here. It was like kind of where they do the pre-tapes now with people walking. And I'm trying to talk to Elijah about stuff. Elijah puts his arm around me as if he's doing the Toy Story thing, looking up, you know what I mean? And he goes, Stevie, You fail to see the big picture in this. I'm heading in the, he's trying to explain to me his trajectory up and my trajectory down. And I'm like, oh, and I had to look like, as he's doing it, like cross-eyed, like I was just checked out. So years and years later, we had the opportunity to work a show again, and we were doing something together, and he was trying to get stuff in, and I put my arm around him and then did the same thing. I go, Elijah, you fail to see the big picture. And he belly laughed to the point where he was almost in the fetal position. I was like, I've been waiting years for this.
Now, the next name, I'm sort of cheating again because he did have, I suppose, a main roster run, and he wrestled some big dudes, but I've put him in because basically, when I was a kid watching, he was the epitome of the wrestler that I absolutely hated in 2004 and was a total turn-off, Luther Reigns.
He was a creative wrestler. Like, what would happen if I shaved my guy's head, but I put a horseshoe at the top? Because it used to be horseshoe, right?
Yeah.
I'd say, man, it's tough because he never hurt
anybody. But he
anybody.
was wrestling Kurt Angle, he was in JBL's cabinet, and I was like, how much of a dearth of talent do we have where he's there? He shouldn't have been on the main roster. I'm sure he's a nice fella.
But because of that, and he did carry somewhat of his own weight in those matches, those are tough. You're in the deep end. I'd give him a C. First look, if he didn't do anything, I would say D. But he did wrestle these guys and hang with them. So I think he wrestled Eddie Guerrero too and Benoit. I'm not sure. But
yeah,
he was pushed on SmackDown.
This guy also was in JBL's cabinet. Boy, he had some bad wrestlers in his cabinet, in my opinion. But what about yours?
It's almost
Orlando
like a real
Jordan.
cabinet in the government.
Anyway, because I really like the JBL character, but this pack of bums he surrounded himself with. Anyway, Orlando Jordan.
Well, because of his spot, it's got to be a C. Because he was there to feed talent and put talent over on the way as
He was
obstacles.
a U.S. champion.
Yeah, he was. That just proves how politics affects your career one way or the other. How do you feel about the TNA run?
Confused. I don't mean sexually confused. I mean just confused why anybody would put that on television.
You mean the vignette where he poured cream all over himself?
Yeah, but he was there for months.
He was.
As well. He was there for quite a while. Yeah, Orlando Jordan and Luther Reigns are the two wrestlers that I have almost an irrational hatred for.
Well, I like both guys, but, as talents, it's one of those things. What moments or memories did either one of them create? That could be uncreative, but then again, these guys had a lot more of the eye test where the office would look at them and look at me and say, those two, not that guy. So you had the opportunity. What did you do with it?
They created one memorable moment each. Orlando Jordan with the milk over him, and Luther Reigns with the I've had peas before, with that Thanksgiving thing where he...
Huh?
Do you not remember this?
No. Oh,
right,
was this the annual food fight on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it's the Thanksgiving food fight, 2004, right? I actually watched it back recently for something else I'm doing on another channel. And he interrupts the table in the ring and everyone's getting the food and everything, right? So there's one thing for Taz to look over at Luther Reigns and then just totally ignore him and then carry on the thing. It's another thing for Tony Chimmel to do it. Where Tony Chimmel just looked at him and just started putting more potatoes on his plate. And then Big Show hits him with a turkey and then that's it.
Oh, wow. That's the moment he created.
Yes, that is the moment he created. Because he's trying to brag that he's expanded his palate, and that included having tasted peas.
That sounds like a Vince McMahon line. The traumatic childhood in the trailer park, having to eat peas.
Yes, and my brother as well, because he hates peas. Right, okay, so we'll say C for Orlando Jordan. How many more?
Wait a
have we
minute,
got?
I got to stop you for a second, off topic or on topic.
Please.
Shepherd's pie is a big thing over there, right?
Oh, the shepherd's pie, yeah.
Don't they put peas in it?
Yeah, I like peas. I've had peas before.
Before?
No,
More please.
He just says peas before for some reason. But anyway, there you go.
Are you
right.
like the master in The Last Dragon? Sure enough.
That's basically how he spoke, yes. He spoke like that, and he says, I've had peas before. Anyway, because I've written Chris Cage again there as well. This is the worst list in the world. Right, I'm going to give you this one, then we're going to have a break for a brief minute. Armando Estrada, who was at the time, at the beginning of OVW, called Osama, with a headdress and everything.
Wasn't that something?
He was Bin Hameen, basically.
Where did that come from? I wonder what was on the news during that time. Oh, man. Really good dude, by the way. Got himself in incredible shape, but also his money was really being a manager, especially with Umaga. When he wanted to work, I felt like it was a couple steps back. Although the ego, you want to get in the ring, you draw money as a worker. I understand that. But his biggest strength was that really, I guess, Cuban dictator look that he had with the promos. Are you saying as a worker or a manager what the rating is as potential?
I guess as a talent. I'm not talking about the character he had specifically, but his talents. And he was a manager. So as a manager, is he main event manager potential with Umaga?
Yes, an S. He's a manager that can get heat for a champion. As a talent, he's a C because he can bump, he can sell, but it's not. And even then, because of his size and his muscular nature, it's not a great. He doesn't have that kind of pacing and gears to bump and feed in a gear that you need to with that. In other words, the match almost slows down during the comeback if he's bumping and feeding. That was a weak point. But as a manager, he's beyond an S. I would put him on that era, and hell, he carried WrestleMania 23 with the Trump McMahon thing, Umaga, Lashley. He played a really great part in that.
Yeah, the reason why he's in this list is because I just don't know why he wasn't doing it for longer. And that's a compliment to him. I mean, he was one of the only good of that era, in that 5-year era, or whatever. There was only a couple of good managers, and there was obviously
because he wanted to wrestle. Him and Daivari let their egos take them over, and instead of what be ready, do what you're going to do. Work house shows, do the old Bobby Heenan. If they win, they get 5 minutes with me. That way, you scratch that itch. Daivari and him did themselves and their careers a disservice by not milking the manager role as long as possible.
Antonio Thomas and Johnny Heartbreaker, the Heartbreakers, they were briefly on Raw for like 2005 or something, around that time. Yeah,
I don't remember working them, but I do remember watching a lot of their matches, and they had a lot of charisma, they had a lot of energy. Somehow, some people in the office were not that high on them, and then others were, so there was a little bit of an internal struggle with that. They put the belts on them really quick, too, didn't they?
Yeah, but I mean, they did that with everyone in the mid-2000s.
No, I'm just asking, because they did. There's something to that could have caused a little bit of, obviously, here's a word never happens in wrestling, jealousy, envy. But they were good dudes, but they were kind of in the same type of treatment as the Dicks, where they were kind of hazed a little bit here and there. But people liked them. They did the dance side to side like that and everything. And, you know, what brought them to the dance, and all of a sudden they were a comedy act. You know what I mean? It kind of flipped the script with their, I would say they were definitely, my goodness, they had a tag title run. I would have to put them as upper card potential to be fed to DX and other teams.
But I would argue that isn't upper card potential. I'd argue that's a temporary thing. I'm thinking more steady work as far as upper card.
Yeah, there's somewhere between a B and a C where you got to keep them somewhat strong to put the more over teams over. But yeah, that whole thing, and that's the thing I like to, we could do a whole segment about that during the developmental episodes. Why in the world do you have them start at the top? There's nowhere to go but down after the debut. Like winning titles. So stupid.
The Heartbreakers were never champions. Best I can tell.
All right, let's put them in a C then.
Okay. That works for me. Right. Well, I think we already know the answer. Sylvester Terkay.
It's a tough one because you look at him and he's the real deal. To the point where on a house show for Extreme Rising, I was wrestling Luke Hawx. And basically this whole day, dude, delayed flights, traffic through New York. I didn't even get to the building till just before my match with Luke. We're talking it over. I put him in position for the Stevie Bomb. Turkey, he kicked me so hard in the ribs that my hip bone went into the 5th row on the other side of the ring. It literally gave me scoliosis instantly. He kicked me so hard. He never, ever, from WWE until that point, never learned how to work, in my estimation. It was tough. It was tough to watch his matches, and I have to put him at a D.
Cliff Compton.
Oh, he was Punk's boy. He was one of the guys with Snooker's kid as the 50s greasers. What were they called? Deuce and Domino. They were with Cherry. Deuce and Domino. They had a great presentation, great entrance. I love the doo-wop song. But nah, he's a C. Him and Deuce. C is a tag team and individuals. Put people over, that's fine. He had the Andrew Dice Clay gimmick before and after that.
Daniel Puder. Very, very brief career in WWE where he got chopped to pieces as revenge for daring to win Tough Enough. And
revenge for doing exactly what they told him to do, and that's shoot with Kurt Angle. And not assuming on live TV or live to tape that Puder would put Angle in a key lock, right? Yeah. So he was done after that. I'd probably put him, I don't know, because he was like Ron Waterman, not Flesh Gordon, the actual Ron Waterman, where he was so stiff he couldn't turn that body. The body language was so stiff. So I would put Daniel in, at most he would put other people over. Politically, he was done. So you could say politically, he was never going to be in a WWE ring after that anyway, but he did have potential. So I would say undercard.
For a C, Pat Buck, who I believe at the moment is still an agent with AEW.
Wasn't he going to leave at one point? Or no, he left WWE to go to AEW, correct?
No, he's still there as best I know.
Now, Novin, everybody used to call him Bad Luck Buck, No Luck Buck, and all these other things in OVW because he would really make a boo-boo face when other people were called up. And I understand that because it's frustrating when he was in great shape, he could work, he could bump, he could sell, he just never had a gimmick that really translated into that. So I would say he's a C because outside of the bumping, the selling, and obviously, if he's an agent, he knows how to put a match together to get people over. So I would assume that. Also, he used to host a podcast with Ryback, right? They had a falling out.
What, Ryback fell out with someone?
What's that?
Ryback fell out with somebody? Colour me surprised.
Well, that's a whole thing. I don't know the exact story. You could probably look at a clip from Ryback to do that. I didn't fall out with Ryback. Even though your pre-workout didn't have enough caffeine to really drive my workouts.
Right, aha. We haven't done that yet.
Aha. Yeah, 2 thumbs down. Aha, as I hit the microphone.
Right, okay,
People
this
wait
next
for
one.
that now, too, when Stevie going to lose to the microphone.
This next one hurts. Paul Burchill. He was, right, so there used to be a local indie here that was broadcast on the wrestling channel called FWA. I really liked it. Paul Burchill was the star on it. And this was a time where, big guys who was like 6 foot were not doing the high-flying stuff that they are doing now, and therefore sort of making the cruiserweights more redundant. But, that being said, he was doing shooting stars off the canvas to defeat people. That was his finisher. He was great in FWA. Well, then he goes to WWE and ruins it.
Yeah, why do you think WWE had that attitude towards him? Because he was kind of like, he had great mat wrestling. He had great foundation. So you put that in there with a Regal, right? Great mat wrestling. But then he's muscular like a WWE Vince McMahon walking through the airport guy. Long hair, young dude. Obviously not a roughed up looking dude at all. So you figure you would translate to the female audience. So make him an incest pirate. Perfect.
I thought you were going to say pervert.
Well, that too. That was the next thing on the list. Upper card potential. B.
Roadkill, ECW alumni, of course. He was in OVW for quite a long time.
Yeah, the Polish gimmick, the big Badowski gimmick or whatever.
Yeah, he
That's
was
chickens.
not. He was not Roadkill for years, and then when the WWE ECW thing came about, he was Roadkill again.
I'm only doing this because Roadkill watches the show, and it's been an ongoing rib since the Hammerstein Ballroom match we had in 2005, 2006. He did the Vader into the elbow thing. That literally killed me. So I'll text him even, I think there was like 3 weeks ago, maybe less. We have a group chat or a group text message. Roadkill, Danny Doring, Big Sal, Bull James, and Crowbar. And I'll text once in a while a picture of that elbow, and I'll send it to Chris so he can be rolled in. And I said, my ribs are almost 100%. And he will text me back about being a P word, about this, or at least you're not still complaining 20 years later and all that stuff. They actually, Bruce Pritchard from Rumor and Urban Legend had pitched that Badowski gimmick or whatever the gimmick he had in the trunks to work The Undertaker. So based on that, he's an A.
I really like the Roadkill character as well. I thought that was good stuff. When, the end of ECW, that was one of the bright spots. Him and Danny Doring.
Roadkill and Danny Doring are one of the most underrated acts. But here we go with the petty politics of Paul Heyman that Doring and I hung out. He's like, those are the two guys I want to bury most of all. And we knew it.
And we'll go to Ricky Ortiz.
Oh, Ricky. Oh, I wrestled him in Arizona one time. I remember. No, that was Eric Perez, another developmental you may not remember. He was like the Spanish Matt Morgan. He looked just like Matt Morgan with a beard back then and everything. Ricky O had the ECW run for like 3 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I never saw anything in him as outside of undercard potential.
And
I don't know. Let's see. Yeah.
Next one, we know the name. I don't know much of his wrestling stuff, but he's definitely CM Punk's boy and trainer, Ace Steel. He was in OVW for a while.
Ace Steel, you know who Ace Steel reminds me of? Shane from TNA, the referee from Puerto Rico that could work.
Shane Sewell.
Yeah, he took on. Yeah. I knew the name, but I knew I'd mispronounce it, so that's why I count on you. So that way the SEO gets it. So mispronunciations, according to James, ruins the SEO. So if we don't get the views, it's my fault. Shane and Val Venus talk up in Puerto Rico, remember? Hard Bodies or something?
No, do like the Lover something. I can figure it out.
The Lovers, the Sextons. The Sexton Hardcastles.
Yeah, the Sexton Hardcastles featuring Flash Gordon.
So, there you go.
Okay, within the Glamour Boys. So it was Glamour Boy Sean, Glamour Boy Shane. So it's the Glamour Boys, the Canadian Glamour Boys, in fact.
Ace Steel's right up there. Ace Steel is more talented than CM Punk. Ace Steel has main event potential. Never realized it. I've seen Ace. Besides the foundation, the fire that he had, like that's why I say it reminds me of Shane. When he was a referee in TNA and would fire up and I'd be like, this dude's got more fire than the boys. And he's a ref. What a rib. No, Ace Steel, that's very biased. But from what I've seen and every time they handed him, he was the Trump guy who wrestled Hillary on Raw that one time.
No.
Yes, that was Ace Steel.
When was that? That must have been 2015,
during an election
16.
year or primary year, yeah.
Who were the guys who were Rosie O'Donnell and... Was it Donald Trump? I can't remember who the other one was.
Well, then you had the guy who was Barack Obama on there.
Yeah.
No, but Ace Steel was Trump.
No way. Do you think the only problem with Ace Steel is just a height thing? Or a size thing?
No, because he's almost as tall as CM Punk. And he's got a better body.
He's billed as 5'9".
Well, he needs to get some lifts.
Yeah. Get Jericho to advise you on that.
I'm telling you, I didn't say that. You said it. How dare you? But Ace is a personal favorite of mine because I love the fact, and we talked about a list of people that never got the opportunity that they deserved. Ace Steel will be on that list.
So we're talking A then, are we? Or are we talking S?
I'm talking A.
A for A Steel. Well done then.
Because guess what? Cold Steel made Punk the worker he is. Think about that.
This next guy, he was on the WWE roster for a decent time. Jesse, as in Jesse and Festus, but then he was Slam Master Jay. Basically,
Biscuits
he was mostly
gravy,
wasted.
Baby. Biscuits and gravy.
So Ray Gordy. Now, whenever they used to say so-and-so's Ray Gordy's son, everyone must, if they didn't know, must have looked at Festus. Luke Gallows.
That's a great point.
Because I always thought, oh, right, no way, that's Terry Gordy's son. And it wasn't. It was Slam Master Jay.
Yeah. And actually, Ray Gordy looked like Lance Cade's teenage son.
Yeah. There you go.
Say, yeah, I'd have to put him in a C just because they never got off the ground. His size as a single wrestler, or lack thereof, even if he is a Gordy, it only takes you so far. So he could bump, he could sell, he could actually talk. He did all the talking, as a matter of fact, but it's a C. And by the way, this is my spot. So there's no shame in this C category as well.
Next up is Mike Hutter. Now, if you don't know that name, he was in OVW for a while. He would actually make the WWE main roster many, many years later, where he was also completely wasted, but he's more famously known as Dixie Carter's nephew, I think it was, EC3. Mm-hmm. So at the time, I don't know if you know, knew EC3 at the time, but his talent, his potential to be a main eventer.
Oh, at that time? Oh, at that time, he was a C. He looked like just another body to put people over, to bump, to sell, do the very basics. But obviously, as time went on and he reinvented himself, he's an S. But Mike Nutter, C.
Or Hutter, as he was known as at the time.
Mike Nutter's going to team up with Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
And Sexton Hark. We have a new stable of, oh my God. And they're all lined up for what podcast?
Oh, has Bonnie Blue got a podcast?
No, the Stinky Face podcast.
Oh, the Stinky Face podcast, of course. With, what was the other thing? What's the other thing that I was like? There's the Stinky Face podcast, and what's the other one?
Well, you like the Murder Hour back in the day.
And the Murder Hour. We do like that one as well. Right, a few more, then we're going to not ask any more of these. Colt Cabana, as far as a talent on the WWE roster, obviously he made a name for himself on the indies pretty much exclusively for 2 decades plus, as well as appearing here, there, and everywhere. Obviously Ring of Honor, but, also AEW occasionally. But as a talent in the late 2000s in WWE, how far do you think he could have gone? Because no one seemed to like him in The Office, apparently. Yeah,
Scotty Goldman. As a matter of fact, they took everything away from him that they could, even though he was trying to still have the tights. It's hard to say. I mean, you need to have fun on the show. So we're talking about C is just putting other people over and not really having much to offer. I'd put him at a B because he's a necessary entertainment category that the wrestling business back then and even today is sorely lacking. The fun of it. But if you look at the ROH stuff, one of the memories I remember is Homicide pouring antifreeze into his mouth. Remember that?
No.
Yeah, he did a heat spot. It wasn't actually antifreeze. Well, it might have been. They had an angle with Colt Cabana and Homicide. If I'm remembering this incorrectly, let me know. Where Homicide got heat on him and took antifreeze and poured it into his mouth, and he started selling. Pretty cool stuff.
Mm. Well, freeze. It's antifreeze, sure.
Yeah, it kept him warm during cold months. But yeah, Scotty Goldman, for call. All right, let's say this. Usually D is something where I'm doing it as a favor to the roster around the talent. Scotty Goldman's a D because I want to do it as a favor to Colt Cabana's legacy. Should have never stepped in a WWE ring.
Next one, BJ Whitmer.
Very talented guy, very big guy. Really didn't find anything in WWE. Never even, I don't even know if he ever worked at TV. Did he?
Give me a minute. I'll find out, but you tell me about him.
But in Ring of Honor, he really shined. And in Ring of Honor, he actually got the book at one point, didn't he? Or he's at least an agent.
So I'm struggling to spell BJ. I spelled it wrong 2 times now.
Damn, it autocomplete for you?
No, unfortunately, it's not my phone. and following it with please, comma please. Yeah, he was in Ring of Honor. What am I even looking for? Oh,
Well, you're looking for
WWE.
BJ Whitmore WWE TV matches, I guess. Because I
Bear
don't think
with.
he had any.
No, he
He
didn't.
might have worked one Heat or Velocity or
Nope, didn't even do that. Never made it to even a dark match there. So there you go. What would you give him?
in WWE. I guess is all around or just WWE.
No, if he made it to the WWE roster, how far could he have gone if things went his way?
Based on the way he worked in a Ring of Honor, that was not the WWE style. So I would not put him beyond a C. In other words, Ring of Honor, he was in that gap between the really strong style, and he's done some stuff that was pretty strong style, into when they became a little bit more of a sports entertainment company. So I'd put him in a C there, but a B, obviously in Ring of Honor, he flourished.
Mike Sanders.
Oh, SOL, and you know what that means. Good friend. A good friend. Mike Sanders became really just one of those dudes I wanted to be around, especially when I lived in the Smyrna, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia area. Really, really good dude. And I would seek him out. He would DJ like local events and have what was it called? It was like a bus, a Volkswagen thing where you would do all the photo things and all that stuff. He was really cool to have, he took everything he learned from the business and really applied it into that new business that he did. And he was very successful, still is. Never reached the potential he should, but I would say Mike will be an upper card guy based on the WCW run. He's Armando Estrada, a great mouthpiece that was much more over as a manager than a worker.
And to end it on, the man who doesn't want to ever lose a title, Easy Money.
Hey, the D should be never wanted to get in the ring when a title was on the line. How's that? He's a C. He's a C, and from what I knew from ECW and what Nova told me and other people, he was hard to talk match over with. So politically, it would be like, we don't even want to bother with him. That's what it seemed like. I'm not going on. I got along with him fine, but I never had to work him. And that's where it differentiates everything.
So I know you had a short list of people that you wanted to make mention of people who maybe weren't even in OVW or HWA, but around this time you had a list of wrestlers that you wanted to sort of just give a shout out as people who would have maybe even flourished in WWE who never even got remotely that opportunity to do so for one reason or another. So what is the list? And I hate to rush you, but this is already 2 hours 30, so this might have to be a slightly condensed list.
I got the list just in case. I'll give a small explanation.
You did put Dave Taylor on it, who I know for a fact did make it to the WWE roster for like a year.
Yeah, but not to the point of his potential that should have been memorable.
Oh, God, no.
There you go. So, and this is no particular order. This is kind of laterally across the board for their own reasons. Number one would be my good friend Ben Hameen, for the same reasons as Armando Estrada and Mike Sanders. Wrestling ability, not as much as he could provide as a manager with that great improv person, Second City in Chicago, and something we're going to talk about, Take a Drink, future episode. I believe that's one element that Ben points out all the time that's sorely lacking from the developmental system. It's too paint by numbers. You can't call audibles. You can't improv and live in the moment. And Ben is an expert at that. All right, another good friend, Greek God Papadon. Had matches on the indies with him. This is a guy that never got the opportunity that he deserved. Can cut a promo, can work, and can be, if you want him to be a hell of a hand, that's great. But he is capable of so much more. Luke Hawx, far and away. This is the guy that I wanted to win the Extreme Rising title rather than myself. He has never, ever gotten the opportunity that this guy deserves and had a successful career, stuntman and acting in Hollywood. Never took advantage of that crossover potential with Luke Hawx either. Next one.
Is that the son or the father? Because
PJ's the son.
Yeah, okay.
PJ has a lot to learn. PJ's not ready, but Luke is beyond ready and has been. Johnny Swinger, especially Johnny Swinger in TNA, he was basically the Outrunners before the Outrunners. Very entertaining. Here's a name, and I'm picking Wildcat sports people and other people in the indies that I worked. Ryan Davidson, a Booker T reality of wrestling talent. I wrestled in Wildcat sports. Big dude, call himself the Bear. He's an amazing guy, an amazing worker. Just never got the opportunity. Another guy from Wildcat, Danny Flamingo. Just your over-the-top, obnoxious heel that when he talks with a Cajun accent, you can hardly understand him sometimes. But when he says stuff, you just want to see him get his ass beat. And he's a good dude as well, outside of that. Mason Beck, 6'6", 6'7". This is a guy from the Indies and the Midwest. He actually is best friends with Seth Rollins for 20 years. He always went to the Black and Brave school. He's an incredibly intelligent guy and should have got the opportunity. Robbie Brookside never got the opportunity he should have. Mm-hmm. And this is a personal thing with me. I met Robbie, classy guy, gentleman. Looks like his daughter's going to get the opportunity. But Robbie should have got an opportunity to bring that world of sport, to bring that long hair, to show people what it's like, and to be right there. And Dave Taylor never got the opportunity, and WWE should have. That's the list.
And a fine list as well. Half of them are your friends, though, I did notice. So you had Luke Hawks.
Oh, yeah, they're all getting jobs. Yeah? Aha.
Aha. Right.
And
on
guess
that
what?
basis,
They're all going to do the job to me.
well, you always say, I'm a pariah for WWE. So it's like, well, that's Luke Hawks then.
Well, that's why I was afraid to say their names, because they're not getting a job at all now. Sorry, guys.
Never mind.
Actually, the joke is, I told Mason Beck, I've told Luke and everybody, you need to get on YouTube, get on social media, and actively just crap on me and bury me, and you'll get a job.
Mm. Well, there's still time, everybody.
Hey, I've sold it. I sold it. I've told it. Hey, I've sold a lot in my life. I've told a certain TikTok friend, TikTok, just bury me. You'll be on TV every week.
Sell more t-shirts. Which is doing well, actually, at the moment as well. Right, okay. We are going to be talking about developmental stuff in future episodes. Take a drink. Could be a part 2, could be a part 3. We don't know. This one's gone rather well, I think. But there's one bit of news that I want to discuss with you, and it's Kenny Omega. So he gave an interview to the Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer, and the other guy whose name always escapes me. And it's a clip on YouTube out there. It's about 8.5 minutes on F4W Online, so a free plug for them, on YouTube, where Kenny discusses the effect that diverticulitis, his very much near-death experience, I'm not sure it's in the clip, but I'll sort of key you up slightly, is that, like, I guess a lot of wrestlers, he say, well, it's a bit of belly, it'll go away, unless it's really life or death, or I think it is, I'll go to the hospital then, but don't worry about it, it'll subside. He was within a day of potentially dying because he left it so long. And he didn't get back into the ring for a year, 18 months, something like that, before he was even well enough to attempt a single match. And now he's very much, basically like everyone in wrestling these days, in AEW and WWE, working a limited schedule. And it became apparent just why he's so limited by just how injured he is, as he was describing to Dave. Now, I can give you some quotes. Do you want me to give the quotes first, or do you want to react to what he said, or what you heard he said this morning?
Well, let's start off. I'll give an overarching theme that I met Kenny Omega once. I've always been a fan of his work, by the way. I met him at WrestleCon in New Orleans that year, and it was just kind of funny because I walked up. He was very nice, came up to me, introduced himself. I introduced myself back to him, and I said, what's funny is I was researching you at one point, and I was looking, and I didn't know that you were like a really proficient hockey goalie, and you had a hockey career. And he looked like kind of left to right, off to the sides. And he's like, no one's ever brought that up to me. He goes, that's pretty awesome. And he talked to me for like maybe a minute more. How are you doing? How are things going? I asked him, and that was it. But I got such a very disarming impression of him. Just like with this clip, I got a he seems like a very giving person to a fault in a way, probably in the ring too. But this is a dude, just from that one interaction, I was like, that would be a guy that I would want to be next to at a convention, signing autographs and just talking to him and just general conversation. He seems like a decent human being, and I hope I'm right about that.
So some of the quotes he gave in this, I'll read them out. Omega noted that he's taking each day as they come in regards to his health, noting, here's the quote, "It's, as you said, I feel in the pursuit of just staying at the same pace that the younger, healthier talent are moving at. I feel in situations like that I wouldn't be able to stand out, or oppositely, I would be able to stand out, but I would stand out in different kind of ways, a negative way. I try not to bring attention to that," he said. "I don't want people to feel scared or sorry for me, or I don't want anyone's opinion of a match to be hampered because I simply just can't move consistently as fast all the time. There's still a number of issues I'm working through, and it's really day to day." He would later note some of these issues. Once again, it goes to the diverticulitis. I have these adhesions in my stomach, quite a few, and when you're breathing heavy, when you have to use a lot of core, when you have to twist, when you have to stretch, the adhesions that are binding to my inner organs, they're pulling apart, and it's causing a lot of discomfort, kind of sort of like a flu-like symptom to emerge. Which is, you get flu-like symptoms a lot of times, like, like foreign bodies in you, inflames you, makes you feel really sick, so I guess that's sort of what he's getting at there. Omega concluded this, knowing my own limits and being okay, I do have a limit. It's what's important. I'm so also very lucky. I'm sorry, this is a full transcript quote here. I have a boss that has an understanding of that. My safety and health is always paramount to the company. So, all that being said, the guy's really sick. I mean, at this point, would you just counsel, dude, just give it up?
You know what? It almost, I don't know why, but I watched the clip and then you reread the quotes. It almost brings me to tears to think about the pain this person is in. And all they want to do is continue to contribute to the professional wrestling industry physically. I'm going to say this. We'll break it down from the first thing. So it's as you said, I feel in the pursuit of just staying at the same pace that the younger, healthier talent are moving at. I feel in situations like that, I wouldn't be able to stand out, or oppositely, I would be able to stand out, but I would stand out in a different kind of way, a negative way. Kenny, if you move, and I'm telling you as somebody very unathletic watching you, who has been battling this, I'm convinced you've been battling this working as you had diverticulitis. And I couldn't see a slowdown in your work. I couldn't see less crispness in your moves. I couldn't see you trying to avoid a bump to cause you pain. There's a saying within the wrestling industry: if you think you're going too slow, slow down. And the wrestling business and wrestling matches are gears. They are gear driven. Slow, medium, fast, back to slow. You don't want to be moving as fast as these kids. I'm trying to put it in words that are as eloquent as Kenny is, because he's a great talker. He can convey a message. He can tell a story. As a matter of fact, when you were reading that, I'm like, if you get a damn smart board, I'm going to be so pissed off. Because you have such a future as a commentator, a sports analyst, a storyteller. You have immense amounts of talent. Don't try to kill yourself doing this. But getting back to that, these kids have to move at your pace. You're the veteran. You're leading the match. You have more psychology than they do. And I guarantee you, if they slow down at your pace, you know what people are going to be able to do? No pun intended. Digest it. They're going to be able to really take it in. And your moves, which are incredible, are going to mean that much more. Kenny, you're giving way too much. And you're too hard on yourself. As a matter of fact, Dave and the other guys said you're too hard on yourself. And I dare say it. You at 20% is still faster and better than most of that roster. It's still more athletic than most of that roster. So thank you for the humility. The business needs more of that. That's probably why it almost brought a tear to my eye, because Man, I know what it's like to be too hard on yourself. And dude, way too hard on yourself. And please, your life, that Brock Lesnar was close to dying too from his diverticulitis. This thing is not a joke. I don't know what to say. I'll put it back to you. I'll gather some more of my thoughts based on these quotes. But man, dude, be a ring general. Control the narrative, control the match. And I guarantee it, man, you're going to create stars faster and more efficiently than you realize. And you're going to protect your own body in the process.
He's going to be facing Okada. Now, Okada is a very interesting character from when he left New Japan to join AEW full-time, because Okada has slowed down so much that a lot of the fans are talking about, well, he's now lazy, he's got the guaranteed money, that kind of thing. And we've not seen what Meltzer, since he was on Meltzer's show, would term a 7-star match, kind of thing. He's just slowed it he's slowed it so much down.
He was always a slow plotting worker, though.
But now he has been getting criticism over the last couple of years that now he's just a catchphrase. He's moreover.
I'm going back and forth. I've watched the AEW matches, and I have watched those 5, 6, 7-star matches with Omega because it's great cardio. It's a great cardio match to watch. But guess what? They moved in gears. Okada at that pace, and then Omega once in a while, sudden. But still, Omega's the one that the Rob Waterman and Flesh Gordon and all these guys, when Omega runs the ropes with that half kind of like, I'm winding up like the Flash to run really quick. Now, I'm watching those New Japan matches. I'm watching AEW matches. He's moving at the same pace, but guess what? He's doing less spots. And dare I say, Okada will be the perfect opponent for Kenny Omega at All In.
I think absolutely so, because they both so familiar with each other as well, and they'll know each other's limitations and how to get the best out of each other. So I think that'll be very, very interesting as well. Now, I've heard this about maybe Kenny, but definitely about Will Ospreay and others, and I think it's probably my opinion really, is that those guys are selfless to a fault. And the fault is that they make themselves a little less by trying to make their opponent, even if their opponent shouldn't really be seen as on the same level as them. Is that a fair thing to say?
Well, it's a fair thing to say, but how are you going to elevate talent? This is the trick, the double-edged sword. 50-50 booking. We watched the FTR Outrunners match for Patreon. Obviously, FTR was trying to do what they could for the Outrunners by extending that and giving more time to kick out false finishes, but they won in the end anyway, so it looked like the Outrunners it's just less than. Kenny and Okada, they do, or everybody in general, has more of a giving nature than they did in the past. I've crossed over between that era and this era as an active wrestler, now retired. But man, I don't know. If I had the answer, dude, I'd be running the company right now because everybody would be over and nobody be hurt. You run the risk of that, but I just got to repeat it to Kenny. And this is where I'm not an expert. I'm really not the end-all, be-all about knowing everything about how to do stuff. But I'm telling you right now, Kenny, and I'm just saying this to you, and you can kayfabe this because I don't want you to get heat with the company. You're welcome to reach out to me and have me share experiences and the true lens that I'm looking at from a third party about how truly talented you are, and even cutting back 50, 60, 70, 80%, nobody's going to notice. Trust me on that, please. Because someday I want to be at a convention, hopefully with Kenny Omega, and continuing that conversation from WrestleCon, and not have him in a wheelchair or a scooter or a colostomy bag or any of this other stuff. Dude, you have a great future. Don't get a smart board, I'm warning you. You have a great future as a commentator, an analyst, and dare I say it, a wrestling booker, which essentially he said in this clip, he has many responsibilities backstage as well. So maybe we need to see what's taking all your energy away. Maybe you need to cut back those responsibilities and become a full-time worker that can be a player coach in the ring for these young guys to show them this is how you do it.
Yeah, I don't know if that was in the clips. I heard the full interview, but he said a match like that, it would take him something like a week to recover.
Yeah, he said that in the clip I watched.
He said that in the clip, right? Yeah, so it's.
He said he had to stay in bed every day during that week after the match till 5 or 6 p.m.
Yeah.
That's not because you're tired. That's because you're exhausted and you're spent.
The wrestling business is interesting, isn't it? I mean, you've said it before, where it's like it's a business that will never love you back, but you give everything to it because you love the business. And I think Kenny definitely fits that type, where any other conventional athletic endeavor, you probably say, yeah, I'll probably give up. But with wrestling, people just love it too much.
Well, I loving it too much is one thing, and that's why I said if you want true perspective on who Kenny Omega is, your name card and your talent from somebody that doesn't have to benefit either way. And you don't even have to say we had the conversation, or you just listen to me now. And if that's enough, that's cool for me. Selfishly, I just want to talk to him again because he seems like a cool dude. But when you look at that, here's the trick. I don't want to leave anything in the ring. I don't want to leave anything for the fans to say I didn't give my all. Well, that's the work of it. You're selling that you gave everything, but you don't have to truly give everything in one match. Just, dude, be the amazing, great worker you are, and hopefully future legend that can, at 50, 60, 70, be just as healthy, as in shape, as much of a freak as you are now, and tell the tale to tell those younger workers, hey, if you want to be healthy like me, or even healthier, do this, but avoid this.
Just very briefly before we shut down the show, I wanted to ask you this, because Kenny's can be a divisive wrestler or performer, as far as people who either love him, but there's a lot of people who love him, but then there's also a lot of people that really hate him. Do you understand why?
I think there's two things. Well, Cornette calls them twinkle toes, Harpo marks, or whatever it is. But I had to say, you got to chuckle out of that. That's why I said it. I was waiting for you to take a drink and spit the drink out. But in all seriousness, that's great. Because guess what? Like you said about the comments earlier in the show, people love it. People hate it. Guess what's happening? Interaction in the center. So if you're making people love and hate you at the same time, you must be doing something right or something memorable. I think the number one thing that it stems from is the blow-up doll match. The number two thing is wrestling the 9-year-old girl. That's where Cornette checked out.
Yeah, but it's not like Joey Ryan, where he just made, something stupid his entire shtick for, 10 years, whatever it was. And then other things happened, of course.
Truth and comedy.
Yeah, but, I think Kenny rose above that many years ago.
I think Kenny saw everything as an art. He uses the word art all the time. This is his canvas to paint on and do whatever he can. So, I think that kind of stuff, I bring it up. Don't let that be stuck to Kenny Omega. We all, I wore Daisy Dukes in a half shirt and wore a dress and a wig. I would have loved to have the chance to take head scissors and take a power bomb off the top rope from a 9-year-old girl in a blow-up doll and make more money doing that in Japan than whatever. And Suzuki did it too, right?
Yeah. There's a few people who did. Was it DDT, the promotion?
I'm not
I
sure.
think it was
I remember
DDT.
Paul London wrestled was it DDT? Where the guy played M. Bison and said, get him.
Well, that's a future watch along, if nothing else.
There was a Japanese promotion where they had the guy who did Heat, the guy who did Snow, M. Bison. They had Monsters. Paul London was part of that, and he always told me about that. I think Spanky. I think Brian Kemmer was in there too.
Can't find it.
I'm going to
That's
text
annoying.
Paul London and ask him.
Do it. That could be a future Patreon watch along, and we're going to be talking about the Patreon, of course, in a minute, or Stevie is anyway, to hard sell you on that, but this is the outro. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. This was episode 54. This is a part 1 of at least 2 parts, maybe even 3 parts, who knows, of WWE Developmental, the good and the bad. We're going to be talking about OVW in future episodes. Take a drink. We're going to be talking about FCW. Stevie was there for a brief period, and also NXT as a guest trainer as well. Lots and lots of insight that Stevie can bring to that, including what he thinks WWE is getting wrong as far as the training and how Stevie would improve it. A curriculum is coming in the future as well. We think next week we're going to be doing AEW All In review and Saturday night's main event as well, which are running the same day, would you believe? But there you go. So I'll say goodbye and over to you, Stevie, to thank the Patreon. And I always forget to say this, we're on podcast platforms everywhere as well. Right. There you go.
Well, I make you not say that because we're a show, not a podcast, but we do have an audio version of the show. How's that?
Mm-hmm. No, that's why I said we're on podcast platforms.
Yes, we are.
That's how I got around that.
That's true. So I want to thank everybody for watching episode 54. Once again, we didn't think we had more than an hour. We got almost 3 hours, if not more, out of the show. Hopefully you enjoy it. We appreciate all the support, interaction. Remember to subscribe, click the bell to get notified, and of course, comment below. We appreciate that. Also, patreon.com/Stevie Richards. Unfortunately, I know you guys are shocked. No test watch along this week, but we do have, I forgot already.
Well, what we watched?
Yes.
Outrunners, FTR.
Outrunners versus FTR Bald and FTR Rage.
Yeah, FTR Gun.
No, you said that, not me.
I did say.
That's right. Aha. So patreon.com/Stevie Richards. Also, I got 3 cameos overnight, so I need to do them after recording the 3-hour episode. I appreciate that. Cameo.com/Stevie Richards. Most importantly, WSI and 2 more future channels potentially coming from James Romero.
Yeah, it's coming this month as well. It's coming this month, the first one, the List one. Look, right, anyway, it's called Listmania. It's called Listmania Wrestling. We're going to be doing that. I've already recorded 5 of them. I think 3 of them are edited.
Wait, are you saying it's coming this month? Don't come on me. Don't come on me, James. Don't say come.
Can you call me Tommy? Why you say that?
Hey, wacko, did I come on you? There's a clip.
Aha. Right.
Aha. Thank you very much, everybody. You see everybody out here scrolling. I don't think you got it there. Take a drink. I just hit the microphone. Thank you for watching episode 54. See you next week for 65 hours of review shows.